Schultzy, 200 cops, mate. How are you?
Not too bad, mate. Yeah, mate. Still here in Brizzy. But you were up last Friday night. We had one or two brewskis just to catch up and a bit of a fire going, mate.
Bit soft, really, for what we normally do. Yeah,
yeah,
must be getting
but we had
old.
some awesome steak. I tell you
Oh,
what, a
was.
big shout out to Chris Luxton, mate. Those rib fillet were
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah, no, very good. Yeah, it cooked well. It was pretty good. Yeah, no, happy with that. I'm back in Lismore, mate. We've completed a week of firefighter last week. We're kicking on this week. I did first aid today, told a few worries, scared a
Yep.
few people. And we're doing chainsaw tomorrow, which is going to be terrifying, and then we're doing four-wheel drive, which could kill me. So it's going to be an interesting week.
Well, mate, it will be, but your face would just about scare anyone.
Yeah, it would. Yeah. It's my podcast, mate. It is what it is. Yeah. So, yeah, no, interesting night tonight, mate. We've got a former colleague from back in the day who's taken some pretty good transferable skills out of the police force, and especially some specialist policing, and has moved on. And he was actually the squad before us. So we met at the college as pretty junior trainee constables. I'd like to introduce Mr. Ben Hosking. How are you, Hosko?
Hey, Barb, I'm good, buddy. I'm good.
You go.
Schultzy?
No, excellent, mate. Thanks for coming along. It's good, and it's interesting. I sort of track you a bit on Facebook, and I know you're up to some good stuff. Hence the reason we're all sort of doing similar things, still associated with policing, but outside of the job. And obviously, you've got you're still doing things in the civilian world that interest me because there's still a lot of crossover from policing, like the skills you would have gained in the job that are very specific to what you're doing now. And we're going to talk about that later, but.
Yep.
Yeah, it's that's why we thought we should have a chat to you, mate. So, anyway, welcome aboard. It's your show, Hosko. So, what I think we want to do is just go through sort of your early career, talk about what you did in the job, and then obviously what happened in specialist roles and your experience there. And I think we'll go through. There was a bit of an incident you're involved in that we wouldn't mind getting a bit of information on. And I think
Yeah,
we'll
sure.
finish off with how it's transitioned over to what you're doing now. So. Mate, the floor's yours. We're just happy to sit back and listen, mate. So welcome aboard and tell us about your early career.
Well, I think we all sort of come in at the same time because the Sullivan review was on pretty hard. So the results had come out of that. NT Police Force was in some pretty dire numbers. I think the recommendation was 200 cops needed to be recruited to get put through the college and pushed out on the road. Probably, I would imagine, a not too dissimilar scenario to what they're seeing around Australia with police recruitment and retention right now is massive vacancies, high turnover, low retention, which sort of opened the door for all of us, right? And I think it's that next generation of cops when you get a big surge in numbers like that come through. So I was 20. Like I applied for the job when I was 20 years old, and I got into the first interviews, and I got back squatted. So I would have been on whatever was before 89. There was a whole bunch of ARPs going through, so the numbers were a bit odd because I think between 89, which was my squad number, and yours, you guys are 92, 91?
91, yeah.
91, yeah. So there's, I don't know if it was 88 or 80, whatever. So I got back squatted, which put me back to 89, and I celebrated my 21st birthday at the police college. Out on camp at Litchfield or whatever it is when they're doing the sort of Indigenous exposure thing for all the Southerners that have never met a blackfella.
Yep.
So I found that really interesting. Going like I grew up born in Darwin, grew up in Katherine, lived in Darwin River Dam, moved around the territory my whole life as a kid. So like for me, it was just like I was just going camping at Litchfield anyway. So yeah, did that. I wasn't a star student by any means, and that carried over to the college, where I even failed at pranks. So I don't know if you blokes know a fellow by the name of Yowie.
Yes, we do know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he'll love this, and so will anyone else that wouldn't mind playing a trick on me. Because I was a 20-year-old, non-fully formed adult, I thought I'd play a trick on him one day. I knew he. I knew he rolls commando when we go and do parade. I don't know why, but he would just run commando for that. I don't know if it's. I wonder if that's just like something hangover from the military or whatever. But anyway, so I was like, I'm going to get this fucker because we, squad coursemanship, all that sort of stuff. So I brought some bird's eye chilies in, and I cut them up, and I fucking rubbed them all through his pants and shit. I got another one about this where I fucked someone else over later on too. So anyway, I rub the inside of his trousers all full of bird's eye chili. But because I am not a fully formed fledgling retarded adult, I left the chilies in the classroom next to my desk. Anyway, so we go out on parade for whatever we got to do, marching around on the deck. And he comes off and his nuts are on fire, right? And he's just fucking melting in his pants. And I'm just having the fattest laugh at his expense. I think everyone is. Anyway, he had seen the chilies and he'd got them and he'd rubbed them all over everything on my desk. So about halfway through the day when I'm having a drink of water or like picking up my pen, I just start fucking burning up. And not only is it like me burning up, I've also got like sweaty dick chili on my face now. Yeah. So I wasn't the greatest of students at the college, but managed to get through. I think I only got one pink slip the whole time for failing some exam.
You did better than us.
Trust me, mate. It was just pure ass, and like I don't know what it's like at the moment, but there was a lot of verbatim learning. So it was like wrote legislation. I don't know what they do at the moment, but that sort of worked for me because I found that if I wrote things out 5 times in a row, then I'd remember it verbatim. So I could just break down legislation. So that was good.
Yeah,
got through that as like everyone does that actually manages to graduate and pass out and get their Freddie. And when I was having my 21st, my future best man's dad come around and he was Assistant Commissioner Graham Kelly, and he said to me, "Well, you're 20 years old, you got no attachments, you are going to Tennant Creek." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And he goes, "You don't have a choice, mate. It's initiation by fire. If you don't volunteer for it, you're dead. You're dead to me. I won't talk to you anymore." No kids. Yeah. So why would you make someone with a family of kids go to Tennant Creek? So I was like, "Yeah, sweet, no worries. That's going to be awesome." Initiation by fire. Get straight out into it. So me, Yatesy, and Batesy, we all went down there, and me and Yatesy lived together for the start of it, and just sort of found our feet, and got amongst it in Tennant Creek, which was a real eye-opening experience because I'd come from being a 20-year-old Territorian growing up in Darwin and Catherine around the burbs to now having to enforce the law and stop being a piss rack and stop being a bit of a maniac myself, which was a huge adjustment. Like, talk about grow up fast, right? How old were you blokes when you went through? I mean, Schultz was probably only just turning 40 when he went through. He's about 80 now.
No, on his looks, mate. Yeah.
So for everybody listening, as soon as we jumped on here, Hosko's seen me the first time in probably 10, 15
10 years.
Yeah,
10 years.
And he goes, "Geez, you look old, Schultzy." All right.
Meanwhile, I've lost my hair and put on about 30 kegs as well.
Oh, too funny.
Anyway, so
I was 24.
Right.
Well, I was 23. It was the year. Yeah. It's 24, turning 25 that year. So that was 2007. Yeah. And you had 5 years on me, Schultzy. So what was that?
30? Yeah. 29. I turned 30 just after graduation. So
yeah, poor old fella.
So yeah.
And according to Hosko, he now looks 94. So
I'll never live this down, Schultzy. You'll be pacing around outside my door.
He embraces his age, the big fella. So what I love about this is, for one, we're sort of reliving our youth a bit because we're all middle-aged men now. But you're talking about Tennant Creek at a time where I was acutely aware of what was going on. Like, Tennant Creek was a show and minimum sort of numbers. And like, you've turned up there as a 21-year-old, brand new,
fresh face.
And there are no specialist units in Tennant Creek, Hosko.
Specialists, mate. There's 3 cops on the road at any one time if you're lucky. There might have been a crossover if you had someone or one of the ACPO like social order units. You might have a crossover of 2 to 3 hours, I think, on the evenings. And if we were super lucky, we would have had the jury fuckers come up from Alice Springs and just, pass out tins to all the people on the highway.
Yeah.
That'd be our backup, would be like a traffic unit. As good as calling school-based policing. Anyway. Oh, shit, there's a domestic. Quick, do an RBT. Oh, sorry, I do love the scooter pigs. They're bloody good blokes. But anyway, they got a special place in hell for jury fuckers. So we got.
I told you I'm not the only one.
we would have we would have had at any one time one person in the watch house. So I guess that's the thing, right? Tennant Creek, 3,500 people, roughly 30 to 40 cops. So per capita, one of the most highly policed places in Australia at the time. I think it might have even been like in the top 5.
It was
number one. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So duties were pretty anti-social behaviour oriented around, drunks and all that sort of stuff. So you're basically just going around using 128 and just locking up on people under protective custody all the time from the moment you start. No different to Alice Springs or Catherine or, definitely different to Darwin. But so you're rocking around. I think as a newbie or a probie, you'd spend probably a bit more time or I found that I spent a bit more time in the watch house because you're useless. Like you just don't know anything in regards to how to prepare a file. So, you just try and cycle through, be as useful as you can and learn as much as you can and listen to the older guys. We were super, super lucky. And I was listening to you guys talk about some of the ARPs that came through at roughly the same time. We got a couple come to Tennant Creek and, Rudy Jameson, Jed Matheson, Andrew Davis later on, Craig Bailey, John Ganane. These guys were Victorian, very senior guys, very well experienced. And I reckon if it hadn't been for them at the time that they came through, I reckon I wouldn't be half the cop I am at the moment in regard, well, not now anyway. I wouldn't have turned into the cop that I sort of became insofar as investigations and being thorough with my job. So, yeah, just sort of got through that. Had some pretty wild incidents there. Ended up, I got a couple of letters of recognition for just different things that I got involved in. One was a domestic siege, which I've sort of spoken to a couple of people about in the past, where this bloke, John, are you allowed to say their names on this?
Oh, no, don't leave the names out. Let's not get too legal. I don't feel like being sued.
Yeah,
cool. Give them my bloody boots. I'll give them my Blundstone boots if they want to sue me. That'll do.
Yeah, fair call. So anyway, me and Little Mouse, who was my partner at the time, we're rolling around and we go to this domestic and old mate's been flogging his missus up and he does a Harry Holt. He's a big Islander fella. He does a Harry Holt over the back fences. We hear the tin, sort of go shaking and wobbling and we sort of, I'll run at the back, but he's already gone and we sort of go in and we just secure the house and make sure the missus and the kids are okay. So we sort that out and then she's like, I don't want to make a complaint. I'm not interested. Oh, okay, no worries, cool. So we do what we can insofar as, the resources that we've got available and making her safe and just advising her to call Triple R if anything happens. We boot off and our next call's a attempt suicide in Patterson Street. And it's a young kid who's tried to hang himself in one of the main parks that goes between Patterson and Pico. I can't remember if when we got to him he was already down or he was on the ground and we sort of we stayed with him until the ambos came and there was a bit of a resus and he was sorted. And as we're there dealing with him and the ambos are there by our side, we get this AAA call, oh yeah, domestic's back on, old mate's in the house and he's locked himself in, the kids are inside the house, the missus is inside the house, it's a shit fight. So we jump back in the car. We run back to the car because it was parked out on the road and we'd sort of done a bit of a walk in. We boot it there. It's probably only 2 minutes. We get there. Rolly, my shift sergeant, rolls out as well. Roland Cubank, great bloke. We worked together for a while just on that same patrol. And as we turn up, Little Mouse has gone to one side. I've gone to the other side. It's sort of long housing commission place. It's So living area and kitchen at the left-hand side of the building underneath the tin sort of car park, and there's a car park there. It's a centre-fed solid core wooden door coming off the car park. We try to figure out what's going on, and there's the missus who's been booted out of the house now, screaming that old mate's inside and the kids are inside and he's been beating them and he's turns into a bit of a suicide by cop scenario. I go around the back and Rolly's at the front and he's trying to talk to the missus and Little Mouse is talking to the missus and I'm looking through this back window into the kitchen. It's like a set of louvers And old mate's inside with a knife to his like forearm, and he's screaming out, "Come inside! I'll fucking kill myself! Fuck you, you cops!" Look, basically just trying to challenge the scenario. Now, at that point, the things that start going through your head are the use of force continuum, right? You're like, okay, pepper spray, X26s have just been released, X26 taser deployment.
Yeah.
Yep. He's inside though. There's fly screen between me and him. So I'm like, oh fuck, how can I deal with this? Forced entry searches are a last resort in the use of force continuum, so you can't use that as the primary entry. You're meant to have a negotiator come through in the first place, which means you have to call them out, which has to be done by the sergeant. So I'm just looking at this scenario and I'm like, okay, old mate's inside, the kids are inside. This is not a good situation. I know the missus is outside, and so I'm like, well, I'll see if I can clear out this fly mesh, right? So I'm like trying to fucking get it out of the way. No, it's no good because every time I would, he'd just come up and he'd fucking wave the knife around. He's trying to fucking stab me or something. I'm like, oh, this isn't going to work. So I sort of, I stand there and Rolly's on the other side and I scream at Rolly, "Oi, batten the fucking window out and we'll fucking spray him on both sides." I had a party pack, Rolly had a party pack. So we smashed the windows and fucking Mark 9 through the house. Boom, just cloud it.
Yep.
He coughs and sputters and he starts pushing down the hallway. And so that centre fed line is a hallway with a wall either side of it so he can protect himself. So he ducks in that hallway down towards the only room with the light on and we're like, oh, fuck, we've just, now it's really bad. He's going down towards the kids. So me and Rolly, we go to the car where the solid core wooden door is and we start leaning on the car because we've got no method of entry tools. There's no manual entry tools anywhere. We can't go back to the station. There's only 3 cops. There's nothing, right? And so we're just doing physical manual labour, kicking this door in as hard as we physically can. We finally get it in. And, man, I was rooted. Like I was, blowing diesel. We finally get this door in, and I remember drawing the X26 because I see old mate, and he's only just a couple of metres in front of us. And Rolly pulls his Glock because at the time it was very much, lethal cover for a less than lethal use of force option. So I've got the taser up. I'm presenting that out. I can see the Glock in my peripheral vision, and we have to close the distance enough to get the, whatever it is, 6 foot, I think it is for the taser. Is that right? I can't remember the exact.
Yeah, something like
that. So we get in and we're advancing in the hallway. I can see the lights on at the far end of the hallway. There's lights on to the left. There's a room at the very end behind him, and there's another room off to the right. And so I'm thinking we have to get to him before he gets into the room with the lights because I'm assuming the kids are in there. Little did I know, and spoiler alert for the people listening at home, but Mouse, being a genuine hero, had already got the kids out of one of the windows, so they had already been evacuated from the house. But we hadn't been able to become aware because craziness was ensuing, right? We couldn't get comms. We were just fucking dealing with this guy. So Rolly and I start advancing down towards him to close the distance so we can save these kids, not knowing that they weren't in the house. I crack the taser. I call taser. I crack him with the first cartridge, and one of the barbs penetrates into the stomach because I see him sort of curl over. And I'm like, oh, fuck, got him. But nothing happens. And I'm like, oh, fuck, misfire? So, because I'm expecting success. Turns out what had happened in review is that I'd healed the X26 in anticipation of the recoil as you would for a Glock. So I'd healed that, but because it's just on a gas cartridge, there's no recoil. One barb goes in, the other barb goes missing. Rolly doesn't shoot him. Old mate ducks into the hall, and I'm like, oh, fuck, now he's going into where the kids are. We've got to stop him. So we advance down the hall. He slams the door. As he slams the door, I go to discharge the cartridge. And I just crack myself in the hand for the next 4 seconds because I just tasered myself and still running live. It wasn't a misfire at all.
I knew we had something in common.
Yeah.
Self-tasering crowd. I love it. Yeah, you pair of clowns.
That's how you give yourself ADHD. You just run 50,000 volts through your hand. So that happens. I'm like, fuck, that hurts. Switch off the taser, ditch the cartridge, new cartridge on, hostel the cartridge. Hostel the taser, go to the end of the hallway. And now we're in a similar situation. Barricaded door, hostile offender, inside a room. We don't know what's going on. We start trying to kick the door, and it's a it's a hollow-core door, so it's just one of those like internal flimsy ones. And I realise when I try to knee it that my knee sort of crushes one side but doesn't go through. So I pull out my baton and I smash it through the door and form a hole in the door. And Rolly's like, what the fuck are you doing? And then I just like fucking throw the baton on the ground, pull my taser out, and just fucking punch the taser through. Crack. This cunt rides a lightning proper for the next 5 seconds. So we go in, he's on the ground, and he's like, screaming. And Rolly just fucking, out comes his baton, and it's just like the fucking squeaky elbow from hell. And he's just going ham on this bloke, right? Because he's still holding the edge weapon. Yeah, even though he's getting tasered. I give him another 5 seconds worth of lightning, so he's just like fully fucking stunned and he's doing the fucking electric salmon. And then we finally kick the knife out of his hands, cuffs go on, we take him to the hospital, and he gets assessed and fit for custody, and then we charge him with all sorts of stuff. Yeah. So that's sort of like my exposure to the first high-risk environment. But the thing that comes out of that, for me, because I was still a probie Connie at that time. So, like, what's confirmation? 18 months after?
Yeah.
So I was within 18 months that I was, tasering someone. And if I hadn't had the X26, I would have had my Glock out. And if I hadn't had that X26 in my hand, I would have shot him. Like, I genuinely would have fucking shot him. Because at the time when we received that training, a less than lethal use of force deployment for a taser was equated to lethal force, effectively.
Yeah, it was.
We'd forced entry. There was no other resources, no negotiators on site. There were no other police officers. There was no other way to resolve the situation. We'd use the use of force continuum. We'd cycled up from negotiations to less than lethal with a pepper spray. We'd gone to try and resolve the situation, and there were hostages in the in the siege. So it was an absolute life and death situation. And in my mind at the time when I tasered him, I formed this mental picture that I'd just shot someone. And as a 21-year-old kid that had done less than 2 years of policing, coming from being, in a household raised by a mother who was a teacher and an early childcare educator and a father who was a social worker and a mechanic, pretty progressive left-leaning at the time, I was mind-fucked. Like, I was proper mind-fucked the next day. And I remember, after that was all resolved, I remember being at home, having the shift come up, and I couldn't function. Could not fucking function. Did I get a phone call? Was there anyone else from ESS? Was there any support? No, there was not. But I appreciate that because there's no other resources in Tennant Creek, and you shall not deserve any support either. Anyway, I say that a bit tongue-in-cheek. I was mind-fucked because I was sitting there and I was like, I just fucking killed someone. If I hadn't had that X26, I would have killed that bloke, and I would have killed that bloke for no reason because he ran into that room and there was no kids there. And I remember calling the shift sergeant, who was a different sergeant than Rolly because we'd just finished he had finished his run. And I was like, I can't come to work. And she says to me, no, that's not good enough. You got to come to work. I was like, fuck off. I've just been in a siege and I tasered some cunt and I'm telling you I can't come to work because I'm fucked in the head today. I'm not coming to work. And she fucking ups me for the rent. I was like, holy fuck. Where am I? What's going on? It was fucking intense. Anyway, I fucking hung up on her. I went like white hot fury and I was like, fuck this. And I had a mate of mine, actually it was Little Mouse's hubby, later on hubby, called me and it was one of those paradigm shifting conversations where he dropped on me, you are not responsible for the actions you have to take in retaliation to someone doing something that forces you to do it. And it was like this shackle unhinged in my mind. I could still remember that feeling of like clarity coming over me. I wasn't intent on killing this guy, but I would have if I had to. And because that was the case, it wasn't my fault. It was simply a result of what I realised I had to do in circumstances. And if it wasn't for that phone call from that mate who gave a fuck to call me and just check in on me, I don't know whether or not that would have stuck with me or if it would have fucked me more or not. But I tell you that those sorts of conversations between the blokes that you work with and the Sheilas, whatever, they matter more than anything else that you can have. Like, I tongue in cheek, and I sort of pay out on the Sykes because I do think they're genuinely fucking useless in the NT Police, and the HR system's a complete mess. There's probably more trauma and injury and harm to police officers in the Northern Territory in those sort of 10 to 20 years than could ever be accounted for, and there's a lack of recognition by the NT Police, probably Australia-wide. But it's the conversations you have with your mates like this. We're all down at some beers and talking story and reliving our heyday. where you actually cover off on some of those things you actually did, and you can talk them through, and it makes the biggest difference. Like that, choir practice. The reason we have choir practice is for this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we made a point of saying that the whole time, is that the reason that we've still got our heads screwed on, because you think about the years. I mean, all up, what did you do? 11 all up, and you've been still in the tactical environment since. So you're really still in the same zone to a point. We're looking at 40 years between us, sort of potentially for the amount of experience. So that takes a toll. We're humans, mate. We're human beings. And the other thing is, like you said, you're 21 years old. You're a child, mate. Like I look at 21 year olds and go, "Oh,
tell me a 21-year-old."
They look at each other and
Exactly.
go, "Sticking you uni." Not even, like, finished uni. So, when we were there, we were slightly older than you, but not really. I was a middle class kid from Queensland. I had no idea where this shit went on. I'd never seen violence in my life except for the odd thing in a pub. Like it was, all of a sudden, like you say, these are weapons. These are real weapons. They're going to hurt people. They're going to kill people. But so are the weapons they've got, and they're going to kill us if we don't fix that. So there's certainly that aspect. And what I love what you've said at the end was that you got a phone call from someone who cared, someone who gets it. And I know what you're just going about the psychs, a joke. And I've said that as well. And looking back, I know that psychology is good. I think that some of the academic learning around psychology hasn't taken in their subjects very well, because the best psychology or the best psychological treatment I ever got personally, won't speak for anyone else, but it was definitely in the club. But I mean, back in the day, it was the sergeant, it was your patrol group, it was your people who'd been there. It was the normalisation of a critical incident. I remember pulling body parts out of cars and just being in the twilight zone. Like, I can't comprehend what I've just done. And all of a sudden, it's like, that was pretty messed up. And these are sergeants who you respect, and you watch them be brave. And I remember being scared, and you would have been scared. That would have been a scary event.
That was wild, mate. It was wild.
Wild. I always use that word. It was wild.
I'm telling you this story. I'm 20 years old, and I'm kicking in this door, and I'm a duly authorised officer to take this bloke in custody. And I'm like, I'm making all these decisions. And ain't no one there going, I'm a superintendent. I'm going to tell you to this. I'm like, I had, we had Megan Rowe and we had Bruce Porter at the time. Bruce was a superintendent. He come from TRG. They cared about us. They gave a fuck, and they checked in on us. Don't for a second think that I'm shitbagging them. It's genuinely the ivory towers that do the check-in, tick in the box phone call, and you're like, nah, you didn't even bother to come here. You didn't, whatever. Yeah. Whatever. I got no time for you. You don't even know who I am. I'm just a phone call.
Yeah.
But that was sort of one of those sort of critical moments in Tennant, just one of, a number of other riots at, Kargaroo Camp, Tin Camp, Whooper Camp. There was actually another one down at the gambling area or the drinking area at Whooper Camp with Rolly and Little Mouse, actually, and it was a riot with a whole bunch of people playing cards and just caning the VB cans just out the front of the camp. And we got there and it was already in full swing. We had nothing to do with it. Like, it was just someone had stolen someone's money, and it was just hell for leather, right? So me and Little Mouse, we roll in, and Little Mouse is to describe this person. She's like 60 kilos ringing wet with her gun belt on, small Sheila. And we roll into this shit fight out the front of this camp, and it's just chaos. There's fucking people fighting everywhere. There's things, bundies in the air. There's people flogging each other. And, we sort of go in and we try and separate a couple of parties, and we try and drag a couple off that we know that are going too hard. And, you just try to do the best you can with the resources you've got. And then obviously, because we are the opponent to any, group of people that are fighting. Oh, the cops are here, let's fight them instead. Everyone just turned on us. And there's this moment where this those flour drums, those 20-kilo flour drums?
Oh, no, I'm well.
Oh, yeah.
It was like I was in a war with Magnus Carlsen, because this fucking 20-kilo flying flour drum just comes hurtling through the air and lands at my feet. And I was like, who the fuck throws a 20-kilo drum of flour at a police officer? And it was like at approximately that moment that I realised shit was getting loose. And Rowley, the fucking legend that he is, comes in the 79 series single cab Land Cruiser vehicle, marked up, lights and sirens, clanging and banging. Handbrake comes on, fucking cage slides in sideways. He jumps out, cracks that seat down, and here comes the fucking Remington 870. And I swear to God, you hear this, and every single sphincter in that fucking riot closed as people hit the deck and just swallowed dirt through their assholes. That shotgun got racked and no one fucking moved. It was hilarious. And man, was it fucking on? Was there some tax for throwing flour at Ben? I was just like grabbing cunts left and right. You fucking come here. Just fucking collaring cunts and throw them in the back of the cage. I don't know how many people we locked up that day, but fuck, we locked up some people. I don't even know what we locked them up for. It was basically just violence in the street. So, like I'm sure everyone's got a great TFC story, but yes, some of my favourites are just like the absolute madness. Kargaroo camp, getting there and there's like a 400-person riot because you got the people from Tennant Creek and Epinara coming together and they're fighting over the footy and they're having arranged fights. So then you're sort of like playing referee for the fights and you're organising who can go in and who can go out. And then they turn on you, so, your car gets fucking destroyed or, whatever. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, we've been there. There's nothing quite like the feeling of a brick shower as you drive out of a camp in a police car. I've been there a couple of times. I think Schultzy, you've been in more brick showers than I have, but I've been in a few, and they're not fun.
No,
just waiting for something to come through the roof. They're hitting the roof. It's like lightning hitting the car. It's so loud.
Yeah,
it is.
Going, oh shit, this is bad.
And the funny thing is, like, Hosking, you're talking about that sort of stuff, and it's not something Damon and I talk about much, but it's so real. When you're in those incidents, it's like shit's going absolutely nuts, and you've got to make these split-second decisions, and then you sit there, like, you look back on it and go, how the hell did we get through that?
Oh. And more to the point, are we through it yet? We're back
yeah, when does it stop?
No backup, man. It's a long way away. Man. Tennant Creek, mate, where's your backup coming from? You got to call people out. They're asleep. Admittedly, you've got more numbers in town. I did 2.5 years in Tennant. Admittedly, a lot in crime and a little bit in GDs, but even in crime, mate, we'd roll out. I remember Tennant Creek, one of my stories, and it's two guys who are very junior. They were very junior. They've gone on to be superstars, both of them. Anyway, there'd been a car stolen early in the night. I don't know if I've spoken about this before, but what happened was it was just at the beginning of the POSI, so the point of sale intervention, basically in the Northern Territory, for those not from the Territory. There's a police officer on all the bottle shops in the regional centres, and it was just done as a pure crime reduction strategy, and unfortunately it was bloody effective. But anyway, what had happened was a guy had tried to do the runner when he was being checked by the fella who was in that crew, and he'd driven through and he'd sort of squeezed him a little bit. He hadn't hurt him, but the car had pushed him against a brick wall, and very lucky that he wasn't very seriously hurt or killed, but he was basically squeezed a little bit. Anyway, in true Tennant Creek police officer style, he's just rolled back into his car and gone back to work with bruises all over him. And they've rolled into the was it Limonite, Bourneite, all those streets, the Limonite, Bourneite, Shearlight. Anyway, to Shearlight Street, that's right. So he's rolled into there, which was just the Bronx of Tennant Creek, and that's saying something. So anyway, he gets in there, and anyway, they've mobbed and turned on these guys, and they gave him a bit of a hiding. That they went to arrest the offender out of the car when they found him, and they got turned on by about 30 or 40 people.
It can fucking happen so quick.
I'm so proud of her. She's in the federal police now down in Canberra. I'm pretty sure she's a federal agent. She was trying to arrest one of them. The other guy was in an arrest at the same time, and she ended up fighting, and she got knocked unconscious. So she's lying on the ground unconscious. She comes to and just starts fighting again. So she's back.
Yeah, girl. Get after it.
Tough as old boots. So I'm almost tearing up telling the story. The next day, the NT News had tough as nails, NT police officer knocked unconscious and rejoins the fight. Like, it was just awesome. Anyway, it wasn't. So what happens is they've just hit the button. They've put the bat signal out and just gone, all hands on deck. You do not do that to our sister. So anyway, at the time, and I'll name him because he's a legend, Andy Bedwell was the detective sergeant in a Creek investigation. So he rings me and I'm tired as shit. And he goes, mate, this guy, I won't name her because she's still in the job. She's just been assaulted. She's been knocked out. She's still on duty. She's fought through it. Her and a partner have done this and this. We're going all hands on deck, swarming the streets. And it's like, we're on, straight out.
Yeah.
Anyway, Andy and I were very experienced. You've got to remember that, and you would have noticed this too, Hosko, that the experience level in Tennant Creek is pretty low. And all of a sudden, they got to, we were not inexperienced, mate. I was 6 years in by this stage. Bedwell was about 10 years in, and we dangerous. Had hate in our heart. So we rolled out, and we knew there were a lot of out-of-towners, and we knew our locals, and we knew that we had pretty good rapport because we're the detectives. We have to often get sensitive statements, so we had pretty good rapport, and we maintained that rapport, but we showed absolute force. So we rolled in there and we got straight out of the car and and they're still laughing and carrying on. And we had the guys with us and they've gone, he was there. He was one of them. He was punching up. He was instantly in the cage. Bang, dropped, cuffed, gone. I don't think we even cuffed him. We just grabbed him and threw him in the cage. Quick search, in the cage, gone. Walked over. Who else? That one. Bang, gone, in the cage. There was a language that was respected out there, and it was, you have crossed the line. You've crossed the line, and guess what? The angry older brothers are here now, and we're not mucking around. You've messed with the kids. You're not going to mess with us.
Yeah.
And we went.
It's like they understand it too. It's like, seriously, it's like this group of people.
We didn't assault anybody. We didn't use force. We didn't have to. We were just zero tolerance, bang. I mean, the force we used was hands, open hands, grabbing people in the cage. There was no need to defend ourselves.
Application of arrest, right? Like you just depriving
all it was. Liberty. And I'm not even trying to blow smoke. That's all we did. We just stormed through with absolute confidence and we ran the show. We ran through there and we just went bang, bang, bang. We filled every police car we could find with arrests. It was all public order offences, things like that, so not major. We didn't have to go in there and use excessive force. There was no need. We just went in there and applied the law with absolute zero tolerance. And it snapped that town back into line just like that. But you've got to – the trouble is when you've got mob mentality and it's all out of control, you can't get control of that. So I think what happened was you got to go real hard, real early, and you get that respect and they go, the boys aren't mucking around. No, back off. No, the boys aren't mucking around.
I think there's also –
you would have noticed that, surely, especially places that – Schiltz, you would have noticed in Ramo and Hosko, obviously, all places you've worked through the time.
They knew when I was out at Ramo. They knew when I was pissed off, and they knew. Like there was a couple of times there, even my offsiders, they're sitting there going, I went off at the elders, and I was sitting there going, "That's it, you're all fucked." I said, "This is," and I'll tell you what, they pulled themselves in the line because they knew I wasn't mucking around when I got that pissed off.
No, and the thing is, the beauty, why that was so powerful is because that they knew that we were reasonable people. All the time we have dealings with these people, it's always reasonable. And tonight, you guys weren't reasonable. And guess what? We still were. We didn't hurt anybody. We didn't assault anybody. We didn't use excessive force. We didn't have to. But we definitely ran the situation. And I think that's what fixed that. And it towed it. And I'll never forget it. For all his faults, John McRoberts said... He turned up the next day because one of his girls had been bashed. She'd been flogged. She had injuries. She had bruises and stuff to her face and all, and she'd been knocked unconscious and stayed on duty just quietly. Tough girl. And young. She was a baby. She was 20, 21 years old tops. She was 19 when she turned up, and this was just probably a year later. So anyway, he turned up and he said there must be a response. We must show, and he was always quite eloquently spoken. He said, we must show that public order will not be allowed to fall that low in this town if we're to maintain safety. So I love the fact that you say things and I can just it's like I'm there. It's just like I'm there. I mean, I've been there, and it's just when you say these stories, I go, oh, man, I just get it. Like I know exactly what you're talking about. I remember seeing it. So, but we'll go back to you, Hosko. I think I hijacked you.
No, that's
Damo.
Sorry about that.
You talk underwater, mate.
I proved it. Yeah.
I think what you're highlighting there, Damo, is basically what I was explaining in the sense of, I'm that 20-year-old cop going through this super high-level scenario with there's no support whatsoever. And I'm not talking about the after effects. I'm talking about the then and there. And what happened there for that Sheila, like you're telling, she's in that shit fight, and there's no support. There's no like you hit the little red button that says, "Hey, everyone in Darwin, can you come here and help me?" That like you can hit that button, and then the watch house can hear you getting flogged, and that's
Yeah.
about it.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
that. In fact, in the entire time I was in Tennant Creek, there was only ever one instance where we got in such a shit situation that happened, as in my patrol. And we actually had a bloke who was in the watch house have the balls to shut it with prisoners in there and come out to back us up. And we were in a riot where it had gotten so wild, we got forced away from our car. They'd stolen the keys, they'd smashed the car, and we couldn't get out of there. Like the only way we were getting out is if more cops came. And so we had a sergeant come and he backed us up, and then we needed more cops because it was still like we had been chased into the bush, and it was either, death to us or death to them. And so like that's the sort of shit that was sort of happening like before the internet and phones. It was still happening when we were there in Tennant Creek. Like it was still incredibly violent. And, I remark now in my current life that one of the things that I have become particularly good at is controlled violence, because the initiation into the level of just chaotic mayhem and use of force was fuck. I think I was doing the numbers and I was like, if I counted every single shift I did in the first 12 months in Tennant Creek and I tried to figure out how many times I had a fight, I reckon I would have to had more fights than I would have had shifts.
Yeah.
And I went from being like when I came out of the college, I can't remember the exact numbers, but I came out of the college at like, 60K or whatever it is as a Pro Connie, and I did $30,000 of overtime in the first year. I took every single shift. I went ham, right? Like no, yeah, don't judge me, but I had nothing else to do but police, and I fucking loved it. Like I fucking loved it, and like I honestly, man, I don't reckon what else can prepare you for that? Nothing. It's just pure initiation.
No, you're right.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a baptism of lava.
Lava's a good way to describe it. Yeah, it's not fire.
Yeah.
But, at the same time, Tennant Creek, when I was there, was a fucking great town. We had awesome crew of cops. The social scene was wicked. I played footy at the Sporty Spitfires. I was playing against the blokes I was locking up on the same team sometimes. Actually, there's a bloke, Noddy, Hamish, who used to call me Big Ears. Surprise, surprise, Big Ears. And we would literally play on the same team. And we had a great time down there. It was just chaotic when you're at work in uniform. But outside of the uniform, you're having a really, it was, you go to the RSL or the Memo Club, you'd go down to the Tennant Creek Hotel or Jackson's or whatever it was you're going, or you go camping out at Marion Dam or further apart. You go ride motorbikes, get out bush, go hang out at like some of the stations. Night shift, get the Remington 870 out, just go blow away donkeys with the station ammo that you're trying to do, recoils with. Like we had a fat time, man. Don't get me wrong. I had a fat time in Tennant Creek.
Yes.
Shooting cats with the 22. Like, feral animal eradication is what we called it. We were park rangers. We were sworn in. So that was also the good part, because it wasn't just like violence and arrests and that sort of stuff. It was also getting out there and being a Territorian and just living life to the absolute fullest. I met my wife down there. I met her at the Royal Flying Doctors, and we're still married today. I don't know how she puts up with me, but she still does. And like there's some amazing times in Tennant Creek. We got to go down to Alice Springs and hang out with the guys down in Alice Springs every now and then. Like we'd go down there, and it was like getting away to the big city, getting to the casino, and having a big night out. It was fantastic. But that comes to an end, and you sort of got to figure out what you're going to do next. And I actually wanted to go to Alice Springs after Tennant Creek, but because I was on the way to getting married and having kids, we ended up going up to Darwin just for the we were already planning to have kids, so we knew that if that was the case, the best medical facilities in the Northern Territory were at Darwin private/public hospital system. So I ended up going up to Darwin after 2.5 years in Tennant Creek, and I went through all three stations in general duties. I went through Palmerston, Casuarina, and Darwin. I started at Casuarina and got involved in a plainclothes operation, which was really cool. So I hadn't done much investigations when I was in Tennant Creek. I'd done a little bit of time in domestic violence because I'd been picked as not particularly good at doing general duties domestic violence investigations because I was probably a little bit rambunctious and belligerent. I wasn't the best student, right? So I was just like, meh, this is all bullshit. I just want the action. But that was good. The investigations was good because it set me up for Operation Vanadium, which was a plainclothes tactical task force, which was not tactical in the sense of like running and gunning and being an operator, but tactically targeting crime. So going out and we were addressing the opiates issue that was faced around Nightcliff with John Stokes Square and Run Street, the flats that were there. So we got tasked with plainclothes operation. We had a couple of Victorian ARPs that were running it, Jack Harrington, who left, and Dom Creer, detective. And then we had, it was sort of organised by John Ganane, who had been the acting senior sergeant, one of my sergeants down at Tennant Creek. So we had this like wicked team that was plainclothes targeting legitimate crime, property crime, opiate-based offending. But the real sad part about that I found was there were a lot of offenders, and I'll use inverted commas when I say offenders for that, because the majority of people that are abusing opiates come from major operations, long bones, limbs. They get some sort of morphine when they're in hospital or a derivative of it. They come out, they're on a script of like oxycodone, Oxycontin, 100 milligrams or whatever it is. They get taken off their script and then they're just completely fucking buckled because they can't get a hold of anything else to relieve the pain or to fix the addiction. And so a lot of these people that are breaking in and, just turn real bad property crime offenders were coming from like really bad hospital-based addictions, which was really sad because you'd see people who had lovely families, but they were just shitbags, and they weren't shitbags because they previously were. They'd turned to a life of crime to feed their habit. So that was kind of sad, but of it, we got a mention in Parliament House. So we had the minister at the time mention the success that we had with shutting down a couple of drug houses. It was really cool because it gave me an insight into getting away from general duties and just because general duties is great fun, but if you're not planning to go anywhere, you can get stuck there pretty easy if you don't specialise. Yeah. And I had it in my heart because I grew up in the Territory and I'd seen the SPVs going around and I knew a couple of TRG guys from when I was a kid and I was like, that's where I'm going, man. I'm going to TRG and then after that I'm going to go to SOS because I wanted to go and I just wanted to deal with like real serious crime and I thought TRG and SOS were going to be the places to do it. So
I'll just explain that, Hosko. Sorry, mate. I'll just explain it for the lay people. So, obviously, we've spoken about TRG before. So, that Territory Response Group, it's police tactical groups exist in every organisation. Every jurisdiction has them. SOS was the Special Operations Section that was established in the sort of mid to late early noughties, where dealing with high-level organised crime, bikies, high-level drugs, a lot of violence as well. So I'll just explain what that is there. So you're talking about your real tip of the sword, dangerous criminals. That's what you're sort of going to deal with in those two areas.
Yeah, and that I didn't see myself being in the police for any other reason than taking on bad guys. Why else would you be there? I always questioned why people would go to like school-based or like mounted or those sections because it never made sense to me to not be charging after the absolute worst pricks you could. And so 2009, I ended up doing, I think it was 2009, I did my TRG assessment and got hosed. Was not fit enough, wasn't old enough, didn't know what I was doing, didn't have a background in the military like a lot of the guys that go for TRG. So got told at the end of my TRG assessment where I was saying, I got through it. I don't know if I'd say I passed it. So I got through the TRG barrier test and I got told at the end, don't bother fucking applying. We don't want you. You're too young and you're useless. So I was like, okay. Oh, man. Yeah, God bless the fucking frank and honest opinion of those blokes in there, which I later developed very strongly. So I realised I was like, okay, I just need to get older and better at lots of things. So I applied for what was the inaugural development of a covert surveillance unit in the Northern Territory and went through that. I think that was sort of like early 2011 maybe, and I was at Palmerston Police Station at the time. And That was really interesting because we had the SSB come up from New South Wales, which is a state surveillance branch, I think it is, and they ran the course as one of their like remote surveillance courses. So, which for us was only 2 weeks. For them to get into surveillance in New South Wales, it's like an 8-week course. So we were only like remote regional operator qualified in comparison to New South Wales police officers, but we thought that our shit didn't stink because we were special. So I managed to pick a position, like pick up a position in there. I was like one of 6 people or something that got picked for the first round, which was really cool. And that was a complete eye opener for me because it was the first time as an adult where I wasn't a police officer. I mean, we're still sworn because we're carrying out official investigative duties, but you grow your hair out, I don't know whether they do or not, assumed identity. So you take on a whole masqueraded personality, which is pretty hard being a Territorian in Darwin, born and raised there, surrounded by blokes that know you in the job.
Yes.
But you pretend, and you hope that your mates pretend for you as well. There's a few times where I'd be like walking through the shops or something on a target, and I'd see a couple of the boys that might be demons or whatever that might have requested our services and a couple other jobs, and you sort of make eye contact. You'd have this funny like, oh, I can't talk to you in case the target knows you, and you have this really weird sort of Mexican standoff where you can't say hello to your mate, but it was sort of funny, especially in Darwin.
Can I run a tangent there, mate? I did exactly
that.
my wife and kids at the Gateway Shopping Centre in Palmerston. We're coming out of Woolies, walking down. I see one of the boys come there and go, oh, I won't say his name, but it's like, oh, how are you, bro? What's going on? And then I was like, okay, no, see, yep. And she's like, and this just goes, well, that was rude. And I go, no.
What a jerk.
All right.
Yeah.
It's all sweet, sweetheart. I know what's going on. No trouble. All's good. Yeah. And I think he texted me like an hour later, so sorry, bro, but I was right on a target. Like, man, I know it's all right. Yeah.
You still feel like a dickhead though, because like they look at you, like your mates look at you like, the fuck's wrong with you? What? Like, you're not that special, man. And you're like, I know I'm not. I just can't. Like, I can't be seen with you. So fuck off.
Yeah,
exactly. So anyway, I did that. That was fucking sick. I loved it. It was wild. Driving at Mach fucking 10 down the Stuart Highway or back streets or doing some of the most insane things I've ever done in a motor vehicle in my life. And it was the first time I genuinely recognised that I could die on duty. And this is after being in Tennant Creek. And I don't make that claim about not knowing how many fights I would have had in that first year. Never once did I ever think I was potentially at risk of dying on shift. I just, like, you're 20 years old. You are not fully developed in the brain, so you do not think that you can die. And going into surveillance and being a little bit older and doing some of the driving we did, I remember crossing over the Stuart Highway in a following this bikie, and I looked at the whites of the eyes of the car that was about to T-bone me, and I was like, I probably need some better life insurance in this because my kids aren't going to have a dad. So, did that for a while, but then actually, it was a great job, great section, great people. But I got the shits really hard with getting used. And at the time, there was no budget for our section because the NT police didn't recognise us. So we were working either for free or for time in lieu. And that ground me down because, like, we had some benefits about, having a car and a fuel card and all that sort of stuff and not having to wear a uniform and all that sort of shit. But when you're working for free, when you're working for time in lieu, and it's a public holiday and you come in, and there's no recognition for it, and you just get told, no, I need you to work, you need to work. You're the only fucking team. I was like, fuck this. Fuck the department. Fuck this. We're not getting looked after. And we had John McRoberts come into our discreet covert location that we had. And this is when he was still commissioner before he got done for, like, taking watches or bribes or whatever it was that he got done for. I don't remember.
Perverting the course of justice.
Right, yeah, okay, yeah. Like most cops. So he comes into our discreet location, sits down, and just, I don't know if the cunt had, like, been banging cones that day or was just living on fucking some sort of meds. But he sits down there, starts talking to us, and he's like, so what I was thinking for surveillance is we should get you guys up in the plane and you can follow people on the plane and you can have binoculars and watch them. I was like, this cunt's, he's high. Like, what the fuck is he talking about? What plane does he think we're going to be sitting in watching targets? Where in the fuck did he come up with this? He's sitting there like with all seriousness telling us this, and I was like, this motherfucker is crazy. I think I'm done. So I lasted in surveillance about a year and then left, went to Queensland, took a study break and hit out like a couple of Cert 4s and a diploma or something. Got my TAE, security risk management, a couple of different qualifications. And then I got a phone call from one of the boys saying, TRG, we're going to have a bunch of vacancies. I think they might have 6 vacancies coming up because there'd been a whole bunch of dudes go over to the sandpit chasing work. So it kicked off pretty hard, and there's some opportunities there, right? And I still had that dream of getting in the TRG, and I was doing the numbers in my head. I was like, how many dudes are qualified? Not enough. I've got a fucking shot here. So I re-entered pretty quick, came back to Darwin and got a spot. Like I went to Darwin Station, waited probably a couple of weeks, put my application in for TRG and directly went into TRG and never really looked back, I suppose. I fucking loved it. So
you were qualified? So you had your qual. Yep. You had your entry qual. Yeah. Yep.
Well, I had the one that they told me wasn't good enough. But turns out, if it's on the record, up yours, motherfuckers. Yeah. It's good enough.
There you go.
No,
What
anyway.
year was that, Ben?
2011 into 2012. 2012, yeah. So joined TRG, probably didn't finish my new boy courses and for I don't know how many months because it takes a while to get through all your courses. And joined with I think most of them are still in at the moment, to be honest.
Yeah, we won't. We won't
know.
No,
yeah. So
yeah.
No, so yeah. Or yeah, a couple have left, a couple have gone over to AFP and stuff. Just doing similar sort of things that I'm doing at the moment, but just for AFP. So I got through that. I got through the new boy courses, which was always, that's always fun because you get the premise of being a new boy in TRG is 1, you don't speak, 2, you empty the bins, and 3, you run everywhere and you do all of the work all of the time, and you just accept it because you are the new boy, and it is essentially being new to an entire workforce. You have no skills that are really transferable because you have to be capable of the tactical response, or going to a siege and being able to do a CQB based scenario or systematic search contact, whatever they might want, which general duties policing doesn't equip you for. Surveillance was probably the only thing that gave me any benefit in being in TRG because the crossover between surveillance and dignitary protection, which TRG maintains the discipline for, is pretty similar. And since leaving the police and being in executive protection around Asia Pacific and the world, I would say that the similarities between surveillance and dignitary protection are almost identical in the sense that you are following a target or you are protecting a principal. You are providing a discrete layer of coverage to that principal unless you're in a QRF or a tactical sense to provide protection for them. And you have to be flexible in the fact that the principal may throw you a fastball or things might change, on the drop of a dime or drop of a hat. And so you've got to be able to respond. And surveillance carries over those skills. So I think for those that might be looking at trying to get into that dignitary protection space anywhere in the police force or law enforcement, military, if you see the opportunity to go and engage in like an urban surveillance course, they absolutely cross over and they are fantastic benefit for your skill development later on. But so get through TRG initial training, which is your CQB, your rural patrol, your dignitary protection, and some driving. Like driving the Bearcat, which is the up armored F650, whatever the fuck it is. I don't know. It's a fucking monster
tank, mate. It's a tank.
Yeah.
Ask me how comfortable it is in the back as a negotiator for 3 hours. Yeah.
Put a fucking vest on and a helmet, you dickhead, and then tell me, then whinge about it.
I've sat on public toilets that were more comfortable for that. And I'm sitting in the back
Covered in
there
razor blades.
smelling, putting up with the stench of tactical operators while I'm sitting in the back trying to have a conversation, and they're talking
Cold blood,
in the
mate.
background the whole time. Holy shit,
Cold
mate.
blood. There's no need
Cold
to just
blood,
cold
all right.
blood. Just
Fucking
fucking
cold
stab
blood.
us.
Oh, don't get me wrong. Love them. Love the boys. Love your Hosko.
Tell you what,
personal
you're
hygiene,
a shit
boys. Bit of personal
negotiator.
hygiene.
You are a shit negotiator, just bagging us.
Hey
I
guys,
would have bashed you. I would have bashed you, Barb, if you were there. I would have bashed you.
Would have been a good fight, Hosko. Would have been a good fight.
No, I would have crumbled, mate. I would have crumbled.
As a previous domestic violence officer, I'm just going to sit there and just cool down, guys. All right, just
Love
and then you can get back to it. All right.
I'll bring it back to Hosko in a minute, but I will say this just to say there is banter between the two disciplines, but the two work together beautifully. And I've worked so closely with TRG in a lot of jobs, and I'll tell you what, I've seen professionalism, but that cuts it, mate. That when the boys were switched on, it was on, and it was brilliant. And I'll give you that. Just your armpits, mate. Just sort of
Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed.
Yeah.
Ask Tango. Next time you see Tango, he'll tell you. No, nothing's changed. Yeah, look, I rate the negs. It's that is a god awful job to try and deal with, and you know, I love sitting in the Bearcat because I'm not a sniper's arsehole. I couldn't sneak through the bush if I tried, right? Like I'm like Sisyphus's boulder, just rolling down the mountain, just completely knocking everything out of the way. In fact,
as subtle as a D9.
I'm as subtle as a D9. In fact, we did I don't know if you guys might know this story. There was an escape from custody, and he did the Harry Holt, got to Catherine. Can't remember the bloke's name. He got a lift out west on the highway and was held up in the bush. His mum was running supplies out to him. One of the guys in the intel section flipped the number plate on the number plate recognition cameras that was hidden in one of the speed signs. Identified
Hosko.
So sick, mate. So sick. It's at about mile marker 126.
Yeah.
For the truckies. No. Gets his NPR, identifies the car, the mum's car's going out there, and just like on track and location, triangulates the area that this guy's going to be in based on the time that's on the ground. It's outbound and return trips. We insert and we stomp in, I don't know, felt like forever. And we're marching around in full kit, mind you, in the wet, like just sweating our rings out. We come around, like we do a circle around where we think he is, and we're coming back to close in the gap, and we come across this like dirt path, and we're like, no, it's a bit sus while this is here. So we cross over the dirt path. We do like a minor obstacle crossing. There's no threat. We can't hear anyone. We're not tracking anyone. We cross over, we go into this like sort of thicket of bush, and we start extended line. So all of us stack up. So instead of being like staggered out and just searching around, in like a diamond formation, we go to an extended line because we know we're coming up close to where he's going to be. And I'm right out on the left wing. So I'm like in the end of the thicket, closest to this path that we can see. And we're sort of and they're obviously put me out there because I'm a clusterfuck in the bush. So like, just put that idiot over there. So I'm like wandering along, fucking heading my ass, just cruising along with my M4 out, and I see the fist go up, which is like signaling, you need to stop. And I'm like, okay, cool, no worries. So I stop where I am, not thinking about where I am, just stop where I am, which is right at the top of this like loose gravel mound, like just big enough that I can't get a proper footing. And so as I stop, I start to slide. And I'm like, oh no, stop sliding. And I start sliding down this like little mound, tiny mound, but just loud enough to sound like firecrackers in the bush. And so I got Evil next to me, and he's looking at me like, you stop fucking moving, you. And I felt like he was going to bash me. Like he assaulted me with his eyes the way he looked at me. He's like, if you fucking move any further, I'm going to pistol whip you. Like that's basically how I felt. I was like, oh no, I'm going to get bashed. And he could. He's a violent, capable man. He could definitely bash me. So I'm like, oh man, I'm never going to live this down. They think I'm a bush ninja already, and I'm just sliding down this bloody rock face. Anyway, old mate Sure as shit, walks up behind us, the offender that we're on the lookout for, walks within like 2 meters of me as I'm sliding like a fireworks show and doesn't hear me at all. I was like, thank God I lived that down. He wanders off into the bush and he goes up to his little holding area that he's at. And I'm just like, I don't know how I got through that, because I don't think there's only one bloke there that would have been able to chase him, because none of, it was pretty heavy kit. None of us were really super fast in it. No. Anyway, the night goes on, and it's actually a pretty cool arrest. So they fucked me off out somewhere in the bush, so I don't fuck it up again like that and make heaps of noise. Which I don't blame them. I'll take it. I'm happy to go through a door. I'm happy to neutral bullet someone in the bush. I'm not so great.
Strengths and weaknesses, Hosko.
Yep, that's exactly right, Bob. Exactly right. Yeah, exactly, mate. So they piss me off, and they get a couple of other guys that actually know what they're doing in the bush, which was really good. And then, so what happens is we're near the highway, and every time there's a road train come past, it's like massive sound coming. You just can't hear shit. So what the boys do is they like sneak in on this dude under the sound and under the cover of the road train. And then eventually they get right up to him, and they can hear him snoring, and they call in over comms that this bloke's like fast asleep. And like they sneak up on him. I don't know what that's like. I don't know what sneaking's like. So I'm just making that noise up. So like mice. And they sneak up on him. And as they come up on him, they're just like, bah! Which is not sneaky, but vom. And so he elevates like he's on magnets and floats out of this hammock or whatever he's in, right in time to catch a big bang, straight between the eyes. They crack him, and it's like, it's on, right? Like they just happen to wrestle and they get him. And he pisses himself, I'm pretty sure, because he's like woken up to these violent-looking, aggressive, sneaky people that have just arrested him in the middle of the night.
I'll just add to that. If there was any light source at all there, then what you'd see would be eyes. All you'd see would be the smack and a combat helmet.
Terrifying.
You're in the bush thinking that no one's ever around you. You would think you're about to be violently murdered. I can understand why they kick off.
I just remember laughing when I heard about that. I was like, this poor bastard floating up into a right hook.
One thing I loved about the Taskies was, you need to be, I love the term kinetic. You need to be kinetic when that's happening, because shit needs to be taken care of. That person needs to be taken
you do have to be kinetic.
But what I used to love was once it was done, the boys would just be calm as a cucumber. They're like, righto, bro, just stand up, come with us, eh? You'll be right. Come for a walk.
And you don't care about them.
Okay.
You certainly don't care about them. I can remember something similar. We kicked in the door of this. So I went and had a bit of a break from TRG and went into politics because I'm slightly fucking spanned in the head. And so I come back and I packed on some kegs, and I'm the driver for the third vehicle in this stack, and we go. It's a rapid entry for the prevention of loss of destruction of evidence. I don't know how to take his word. You can probably say it.
Loss of destruction.
And so thank you.
Yeah.
So we go there, and these guys are 1%ers, and it's in Palmerston, and we rock up and we go to do like a 3-foot ladder or whatever to get over this like mid height fence, chain mesh wire fence. But as I get out of the car as the driver of this third vehicle, your responsibility is shut all the doors. I've got my gas mask on, and I'm not paying attention. And as I go to get out of the car, it hits the horn. And so we're doing this like silent sneak up horn, and I'm just like, oh! So as a bush ninja.
Oh, that's funny.
They didn't wake up. The crooks didn't wake up. But anyway, we climbed the fence. It gets better. One of the boys climbs the fence, falls over, going over the fence. Dirty dog fucking blames me. I sure as shit didn't fall over, but he fucking blamed me later on. He's like, no, it's Hosko. He's fucking retard. He's fat retard. He fell over. It wasn't me. So I we go over this fence. We stack up and we go in. And I remember going in, and it was a semi blue on blue. So we had to, it was like primary area, secondary area responsibility. We had to come in at different times, blah, 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 so that we didn't cross over on each other, right? So as we come in, I crack in and I go to the right. It's open door, so I'm with me. And we go into this room and we see this dude asleep on the bed. And it was literally this moment where one of us just grabs this bloke by the ankle and just like reefs him off the bed in like direct horizontal movement. And he goes from being horizontal on his bed to horizontal in the air to falling face first onto the ground to being like NutriBulleted by 4 or 5 TRG dudes in like full kit. So you imagine, like, I'm a $110 any day of the week with 20, 30 kilos worth of kit. I'm pretty damn heavy. And like, it's on. And anyway, we cuff him up and we get him out of there and we walk out of the house. And as we're going out, he's like, "Why'd you guys go so hard?" It's like, "It's not personal, mate. We just don't muck around."
Yeah.
Walking out, straight in the back of the paddy wagon. That's it. We're done. And literally, it was like beers and Skittles by 10. We're a high five and back at PT. It was great.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I loved, and I did like that. I appreciated. Obviously, I had a fair bit to do with TRG in substance abuse intelligence desk. We used you guys a lot for a few medium to high risk targets. Strike Force Trident, mate. I basically had a direct line to how I see. I was just always going, look, this guy's a bit out there. Look, do you want to come over? And Jimmy,
anything with Trident was always exciting because that's that tactical crime squad. That's sort of what we were doing with Vanadium. I was always looking forward to helping out Trident, no matter what it was. I was like, yeah, sign me up. Yeah, evening. Yeah, no,
it was cool because it was fast moving. Look, a lot of what we did was with youth, so we didn't have high risk offenders a lot. But when we did, I knew the capabilities of my guys. But I'd also been a coroner's constable in Alice Springs, and I knew that I had to show restraint. So I was there going like, right, my guys, we could do this, but if we get in there and there's a shooting either at us or back, and I'm literally 5 Ks down the road from the cave, which is the TRG base, why didn't you use tactical response? Why didn't you use negotiators? I was also a negotiator, so I did know that I would look at it through that. I hate this corporate talk, but I would love it I'd look at it through that lens, and I'd make that unpopular call and go, "Sorry, boys, we're getting the taskies in, and we're getting negotiators, and we're going to surround, we're going to talk, court, we're going to coordinate and contain, we're going to negotiate, we're going to do that stuff." And the boys are like, "Why? We could just kick the doors and fucking arrest them. Like, it's fucking easy." It's like, yep, we sure could, and 30 times out of 31 times, that would work. But that one time that he grabs a gun right next to his bed and starts popping rounds at us, and one of my guys gets hit, and then we're in a gunfight inside a house trying to retreat. We're not trained. We're not equipped. We're not doing well. We are trained to a point, but not tactically, not like that. So to me, it was like we use the boys. We use them. And it was good. We had a brilliant relationship. And that and the dog operations unit and Trident, they're like a married couple now. So it was just, and we were the beginning of that, where the dogs would basically ring us and we'd ring them and go, "What's your day look like?" They'd go, "What's your day look like?" Because we're coming. So we had a beautiful relationship with the doggies, and I only know it's got even better. Like, it's basically the dogs are just the uniform branch of Trident. And that's happened now. But we had a great relationship with the taskies, and I had my favourite taskie, one of the sergeants. You know him, I know, but I'm not naming him on here. I'd ring him and go, "What do you blokes got on?" He goes, "Fuck off. What do you got on? Because we're coming." And I was like, "Fucking hope you're coming." He goes, "I've got a boy from WA. He likes to throw things at policemen, mostly bullets. So you boys want to come?" And they're like, "We're there, brother. Just put the paperwork in." And I'd say, "Forget the paperwork. He's moving and we need to get onto it. I'm ringing the ASCOM and I'm going to get you guys called and we'll deal with the paperwork in a minute, but we need to get moving." And they're like, "Right, we're mobile." And he'd have his crew, he'd have his little section ready to roll. And within minutes, we'd have the SPVs. We could hear him booking on, hear him going mobile. We had a beautiful relationship. And I think, obviously, youth crime's grown, and as a result, that real tactical need, you don't need tactical coppers with youth a lot, unless they're armed, and even then it's different. But with your real bad guys, it was just good. It was just a beautiful relationship. We had a good little thing happening there. Like you mentioned, physical surveillance. We had a lot of use of the physical surveillance unit.
Yeah.
It was really good, and it was like a little dance, and it worked well.
Same, mate.
Yeah, sorry, mate. Go ahead. Yeah,
mate. I was just going to say, our bush, I used to threaten a lot.
Yeah.
Devil cops.
Don't make me call TRG, all right? Because I don't fuck around.
What Port Keats call them, the devil? Mate. Port Keats used to call them the devil police.
Devil cops.
I've never seen the community.
Right, well, you started it. We were trying to be reasonable, but now we've got to get these boys in and they don't talk.
Mate, I've never seen communities quieter than dealing with when TRG came out, mate. It was like a mouse wouldn't make a noise.
Yeah.
It
And
was the
then as
first
soon as
one.
they went away, it'll all go arc up again.
Yeah, no, it was really good. And what I also loved was that, we're not sitting here speaking about the bashing team. Utmost professionalism, extreme
Yeah,
professionalism, the ability to escalate and immediately de-escalate to nothing. So, and then the ability to provide almost paramedic level care to people who are injured and in a safe
Yeah.
environment, and then secure the environment for paramedics to come in. So it was,
Yeah.
mate, I got a lot of time. I know I'll take the piss and you fucker stink, but it was excellent. They were good, really, really good. I had a lot of time for them. But we'll move it forward, mate. We wanted to talk about a specific incident that happened that you were heavily involved. Well, you were the principal
yeah.
of a situation that happened in Darwin. I think it was 2014, was it?
uh, 14, 15. I can't, to be honest, mate. Actually, no, I think the commendation says 15. I
Yeah,
want to say
right. Yeah,
15.
15. Yeah. Talk us through that, mate.
So I'd been in TRG for a couple of years, and I had done the tactical medics course, primarily because I'd had kids at this stage, right? So I'd done surveillance, I'd done general duties, I've been to a few shit scenarios with search and rescues where it's what you find on search and rescue is that people perish because they don't get the aid that they need, and there's no services around. And then with TRG, what you find, like doing the tactical work, is that in a lot of high risk situations, people get hurt, and they could have been looked after better if they just had more immediate medical aid. So I'd gone and done the TACMed course, not TACMed, but the tactical medical course with the National Critical Care and Trauma Response Centre, which is headed up. It's a federally funded agency. They got a doctor who at the time was Dr. Malcolm Johnson Leake, who was the guy that was basically in charge of the St John's ambulance service in the Northern Territory. And we had Abby and a couple other paramedics that would train us in all of our tactical critical care. So that was a 6-week course that was right up to the level of non-intravenous. So we could bag someone with fluids, but we couldn't bag someone or give them medicine because we didn't have any of the authorities to do that. But it was a pretty comprehensive course. You're doing like, God, I'm not a medico in the sense of like some of the guys that might listen to this who absolutely froth on it, but I did it because I had kids, so I knew it was important. Anyway, this night that you're talking about, Damo, I'm working general duty support, which means we're TRG. It's myself and Neil Mellon, my sergeant at the time, and we're working a shift to support all of Darwin general duties in the instance they have an immediate critical response. And then we would provide a layer to augment their tactical response should it go south. And for whatever reason, it just happens to be the night where we're absolutely needed. And we're driving down one of the laneways in Darwin City at the time. And Mellon and I just talking shit, having a latte, typical TRG. We're doing no police work. We're just driving around, burning diesel, watching eye candy. And we get this, we hear this radio call for a backup any unit, but it's a police backup any unit at a violent domestic that's breaking out at Longwood Avenue in Leanya. We're in Darwin City. To get to Leanya is 15 to 20 minutes any day of the week. I was a driver, blue and red's on, bongo van, so VW caddy van. I got there in 7 minutes from Darwin City. We pull up and first thing is planned response, right? You go into an unplanned scenario, you have to have a planned response for a use of force option. We knew there were police officers on the ground, but we had to have our own capability to decide on what we were going to do. I was the medic. I was also the junior officer. Neil Mellon at that point had like 15 years in TRG. He's well and truly my senior. He was involved in the shooting with Rodney Ansell where he had killed Glenn Hewitson. So, I had someone super experienced in critical incidents. Now, he wasn't there when Rodney Ansell was killed, but he had been a part of that whole scenario. So he was very experienced at the time. Our response to this is I'll be the contact and he'll be the cover for, contact and cover officer, which is just general policing capabilities. There's two of us. We're not wearing full kit. We're just wearing general duties uniforms. We roll in, and as we get there, Mellon gets out. He's passenger, I'm driver. I pull up alongside this 6-foot chain mesh wire fence. It's got golden canes along the front, so I don't get clear obs, but I can see in front of me as the driver there's 3 cops on the driveway. There's 2 general duties, one being Wade, who was mentioned before, another young fella, and then there's a dog handler, Chris, and Alo. Alo being the canine. The 2 GDs guys got their tasers out, and I can see on the driveway on that 6-foot chain mesh wire fence, it's a double fence or double gate, so 2 swinging arms. One is cracked at 45 and the other one is closed with the pin dropped. In that 45 gap opening is the brother of who is the soon-to-be offender. The offender is on the driveway. Behind the offender is 2 motor vehicles parked, facing nose in, and to the right of the motor vehicles, it's a covered carport, is a similar house to the one I described before. So centre fed off that carport, it's got a long hallway and it's got living areas down the back side, and at the end is like the laundry and the kitchen. On the front is a semi-elevated by about 2 to 3 foot balcony with a 2-foot little wooden fence around it and a little bit of an alfresco area. On the balcony, there's 2 double glass doors, like the pane glass doors, and I'm sort of taking all this in as I walk up. As I'm walking closer to these 3 cops on the driveway, I see another cop come up to me, Grievous. He's the sergeant. He walks up and he says, "Hey, can you sort this out? Hosko." Some words to that effect, right? Like I'm anecdotally paraphrasing what he says, but sort it out. I'm like, yeah, no wuckers. Neil and I have this planned response. I see what's going down. Here's the brother. He's facing the soon-to-be offender. The offender is pacing no more than 2 feet away from him, back and forwards, and he's holding 2 knives, 2 edged weapons, 30-centimetre kitchen knives. He's doing the 1,000-yard stare at the cops. Pre-attack indicators are going off. If you're a Connie and you know what pre-attack indicators are, 1,000-yard stare, clenched fist, fucking flexing shoulders, showing the fight or flight response. He's just flaring up every time he gets spoken to. The brother's trying to get him to calm down, and apparently this has been going on for a while. I get informed it had already been sprayed and it hadn't had any effect. So I'm like, okay, use of force continuum. Empty hands doesn't work. Presence isn't working. Pepper spray doesn't work. Batten's not an option. It's less than lethal or lethal because he's got an edged weapon that's less than 6 foot between him and a police officer. He's got a victim, potentially his brother, between him and the police, who has to be removed from the situation for the protection of his own safety. So I walk up behind him and I take my left arm and I put it around the brother's chest and I grab a hold of his shirt. At the same time, my right hand goes underneath my side, draws my taser in a cross draw, and I fling him out of the way as I pull the taser up, present the taser into the brother's chest, and crack the round immediately without taking time to worry about laser sight in the picture, because it's a very, very narrow window for me to get a taser round off and not get stabbed. So I crack this round as fast as I can. Old mate gets the first barb in, but I've got it slightly canted at 45 because of the angle on what's been going on with the brother. So the bottom barb misses, I assume. I noticed this, and having been through this scenario before where I've tasered someone and not had any success, I just repeated the exact same behaviour as last time. So I just take I did. So I realised that he's not taken with the barb, so I don't taser myself in the hand straight away.
Well, that's good.
I'm like, yeah, clever lad, right? Clever lad.
Yeah, you learn.
Instead, I realise that there's now less than 6 feet. This guy's armed with 2 edged weapons. He's recognised and he's looking me in the eyes. About a half a second of a pause moment here where he realises he can stab me if I don't do anything. So I, at the same time, throw the taser down and draw my Glock at the exact same time. So I wrap my fingers around that polymer handle, I crack that out, do the exact draw that we're taught. So, grip, clear, advance, smack, look, bring it up, form a sight picture, and call him to surrender, right? Like, please drop the weapons. As soon as I do that, he's like, oh, fuck, I'm going to get shot. So he runs inside the house. The way I see it is I know he's going to go to escape custody, right? He does not want to be caught. It's obvious to me right now he's trying to escape custody. So I run down the front of the house to what is the alternate entry exit, which is the back door. And as I get there, he cracks the door and pokes his head out. And he sees me with my Glock still in hand, and he's like, fuck that, I don't want to play. He runs back inside, and I hear the door latch go. So click, he's locked it. He runs through the house. I'm like, okay. Sorry, before this happens, as I'm going down, I see the GD's boys that would be behind me come in over my left shoulder. And as they come in, they try to go to that door that he's run inside of, which is that centre-fed door next to the cars. As they've gone in towards there, Bondi and Wade, they cop a knife come flying out the door at them. So I see the knife come flying. So I'm like, right, he's definitely trying to kill police. He's showing an intent to cause serious harm to police. So he throws the knife, shuts the door, that front door, slams it. Then he meets me at the back door, shuts and slams that back door, locks it. I'm like, right, we've got to get out of here. Right now in my mind, I'm thinking of the conception coronial. So the conception coronial happened at a house that I actually lived next door to as a kid, where two police officers in Nightcliff went into a Filipino house, a house with Filipino occupants, and the husband was threatening death by suicide by police. And as they entered in the domestic scenario that it was a domestic violence scenario, the chain mesh wire fence had locked behind them with a spring latch, and they had been forced to shoot this guy. And the coronial found, if they hadn't have been in the scenario, they wouldn't have had to kill him. So I'm thinking conception coronial.
Yeah,
I'll run back to that.
Sorry, I'll just give that some context. So Conception was his surname. So the person who died was Conception. Yeah. So that was we were trained a lot on that. So yeah, sorry, mate, keep going.
Yeah. So I'm thinking of this scenario as this is all unfolding, which is pretty crazy because there's a lot going on, but these things are running through my head. I get back to that corner where I saw the boys get the knife thrown at them, and I stop and I see the boys are going on the black side, and I see Chris and Alo, the K9, standing just off to my left at the back of the second vehicle, furthest away from the door of the house, and I can sense that we need to get out of there, and I'm about to start calling out to the boys. I've still got my Glock out. I don't know where my taser is because I threw it on the ground. I'm about to start calling out to the boys to, right, let's fucking peel out because we're about to get trapped in here with a guy with edged weapons. He's locked himself inside the house. It's already a siege. Let's call out TRG. Let's move to the outer cordon. Let's lock him inside the house. If he comes out again, we'll have pepper spray. We've got the dogs, other weapons, all those sorts of things. We can be on the safe side of the fence, and he can do what the fuck he wants if he wants to run away, whatever. It doesn't really matter. Yeah. He's not going to kill us or anyone else. Just as that moment happens, I hear the doors smash, and I don't mean like fucking open. I mean smash. This guy fucking burls through the doors, and I'm like, fuck. So I turn my head, and as I turn my head, I can see him. He's on the raised platform. It's about a 2 to 3 foot, like I said, and there's a small fence between me and him, which is about 2 or 3 foot as well. So that's sort of an occluded view, but I can still see him. I have 3 things that I've got to do. I've got to identify myself as a police officer. I've got to call on him to surrender, and I've got to allow him time to do so. And they all relate to DIAMO plus P, which is defence of life, intent, ability, means, opportunity, and preclusion. So I have to satisfy all of those things, the 3 United Nations requirements to fire as a police officer to take someone's life, and also for the defence or the justification for the defence of life whilst on duty acting as a police officer, DIAMO plus P. So he comes out. I think the measurement was like 6 point something feet between him and, maybe 6 meters, whatever it is, whatever that measurement is for the critical firing distance of 2 seconds. So he's got just over that distance between him and Chris and Alo. He comes out. I've got to call him surrender, identify myself, allow him time to do so. I recognise that he's got 2 knives raised above his head. His intent, he's got the ability, he's got the means, he's got the opportunity. There's nothing else that's going to stop him because it's an open gateway between him and the police officer. I'm the only thing that could preclude him or potentially another police officer from taking another person's life or causing serious harm. Bang, first round. I shoot him. At this point in my career, I had fired thousands of rounds. I'm not talking like 10 to 15 rounds for a recoil. I'm talking boxes and boxes and boxes of Glock round and M4. I'm a firearms instructor. I got 99% on my firearms instructor's course. I'm a range safety officer with TRG. I'm a particularly good shot. I shoot him with the first round. And in my mind, I'm thinking, and there'll be blokes that listen to this that have shot people before, maybe overseas or whatever, they'll be like, you fucking rookie. But in my mind, I'm thinking, I've cracked him. Job's done. He's going to fall over. So I fucking shoot him, and this motherfucker just keeps going. I'm like, hot damn, I have to shoot him some more. What's going on? So he covers the rest of the distance. He gets the edge of the balcony, and he jumps, and he goes horizontal now. And as he jumps and goes horizontal, I've got to get more rounds into him to try and stop him. So I'm like, fire and reassess, fire again. Put the next 2 rounds in him. As I put the second round into him, I can see quite clearly that he's traversing now in front of the house and he's crossing over the distance that goes to the back of the carport, where the boys are on the black side. So it'll become a blue on blue if I keep firing. I have to stop shooting. So he drops to the ground and I'm still trained on him. Alo gets leashed off. She goes to work on him. I'm covering him with the firearm and the boys start coming surging back around. So lucky I did stop shooting because it could have potentially been a blue on blue. If he had dropped or I had dropped a shot, might have gone into one of the boys. So thankfully that didn't happen. I get 2 rounds into him in the leg and 1 on the hand where I shoot one of the weapons out of his hand. As he's getting mauled, I hear Melon come in and drop my med kit beside me. And he's like, fucking get to work. You got to get going on him. So I I kick the knife out of his hand. I holster up. I cuff him up. I get my med kit out. I'm in like complete go mode at this point. I've now transitioned from shooting this guy, aiming at center of scene mass to effect immediate incapacitation, to going to life-saving critical tactical care mode. He's been shot 3 times. I need to complete a primary survey. I need to provide life-saving first aid. I need to stop any bleeds. I need to release any tension that might have happened in his chest if he's got a tension pneumothorax or something. So I'm just going straight into it, right? Hands on. Primary survey includes cleaning him, like checking him completely. So shears out, pants off, shirts off. This dude's butt naked. He's cuffed up, trussed up on the balcony, on the road, on the footpath, whatever it is. Alo's been called off him. He's not getting bitten anymore. He's just being given care. I go over. He's got a puncture and entry wound on the hip. So I plug that with some gauze, and then I get a tourniquet because I'm like, I don't know what's going on inside him. I can't see inside him, but he's certainly starting to swell and bloat. I'm assuming what I'm seeing is right. You know, this is the first time I've dealt with someone being shot. I've done a lot of medical on search and rescue. I've done medical on traffic and trauma, but I've never dealt with a gunshot injury. So I plug him up, I put a tourniquet on, I bandage his hand, I cover him up with a space blanket or whatever it is I did, and then I did a primary secondary survey. I got a set of obs, so you got blood, heart rate, blood pressure, rest rate, did a GCS, took it all down in my notebook, and then Ambos turned up not too long after that, but it was just like a conveyance team, so it wasn't full paramedics, I don't think. They packaged him up and they took him away. I went through the process then, so for anyone that doesn't know, if you're a police officer involved in a critical incident where you shoot someone, holster your firearm, gun belt off, keepers off, drop your gun belt where it is, and that's it. You don't do anything. You sit and wait, which is exactly what I did. I went and got into one of the cars, maybe the bongo van, I can't remember which one it was, and the circus began. I had a phone call from a couple of commissioned officers that were just making sure I was okay. The guys did the right thing. They let my missus know that, I'd been involved in a critical incident shooting. Not exactly what had happened, obviously, but that, I was okay. But there was a shooting and I wouldn't be home on time. Chris, me, those boys, we all went home that night. Old mate that I shot, he ended up surviving. The surgeons apparently saved him on the operating table. He had one of the rounds spiraled up his femur and then went up into his body. I had a couple of different things, but long and the short of it is everyone went home. Everyone saw their family again. And I was back at work the next day, maybe doing a quick statement. And then on Sunday, so that was a Friday night. And then on Sunday, I came in and I did a walkthrough with the investigators for the crime scene. And I went through the entire thing on video on that Sunday. I think I might have had another statement on Monday, or might have had a day off. I'm not sure. I was back at work on Tuesday, and on Tuesday afternoon, I was apprehending a high-risk offender at the end of a taser in Palmerston. So I was basically fucking just straight back into it.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's no rest for the wicked.
No.
So, mate,
but it's funny. I just finished that. I got to the end of that scenario and I remember saying to Neil, that felt like a training environment. Everything we'd done ever had led me up to that point. And at the same time, when I shot him, I felt as though I was doing the exact right thing and there was nothing more I could have done to change that situation other than deploy lethal force.
No.
Yeah. Now, that's the test. That's the test, I suppose.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really good thing to hear it from the horse's mouth. But I think one thing I want to sort of hear a bit more, like you've explained the incident there beautifully, but I remember I drove out of PMC just as you were driving in, and you just gone through all that. And I remember just going, checking on you, all right, brother, you're all good, because I'd heard what had occurred. Obviously, everyone had heard what had occurred. But can you just explain the process that police go through? Because this is pretty unique. There's not a lot of people who can openly speak about the investigative process that occurs after a potentially or actual use of lethal force. So can you explain what the process was after that?
Post gun belt down, keepers off. The next thing was isolation. So I'm not allowed to talk to anyone. I'm not allowed to corroborate. I'm not allowed to, do anything to try and influence the scene, right? It's isolation and separation from the scene. Obviously, I'm a critical witness at that point because I've just utilised lethal force. So if something happens to him and he dies, I become an offender. I have to be investigated for murder. So, I guess, and you probably explain this better, Damo, but the reason it becomes murder in that first instance is because you have to be charged in order to prove innocence, right? I guess, I don't know. But I get isolated and separated. After that happens, I get taken back to the police station. I go through a gunshot residue testing to confirm that I was the shooter. So the forensics guys come over, they do the chemicals on the hand, they test, they take their records, all that sort of stuff. My uniforms are seized, my firearms seized, my equipment's taken away, and I'm stood down from duty officially. And the investigation takes place. So crime scene investigation, statements are taken from all the witnesses then and there or whenever they can be arranged. The next day when I come in, my statement is somewhat contentious because what we're told when we're a police officer by the association in regards to a lethal application of force is don't speak. Don't speak whatsoever. Leave the detectives to figure it out for themselves, and that's it. You'll either be found innocent or you won't. And you
terrible advice, and I'll cover that in a minute. But yeah, you keep going. Yep,
I agree. I completely agree. I'm at that point a subject matter expert on firearms and use of force. I'm in the most highly trained section in the NT Police to deliver the lethal application of force. I know that everything I've done is justified in the scenario based on what I'd gone through. I go to work the next day and I provide a full statement with a prisoner's friend. So I've got one of the guys that I trust the most in the world present for me during the time that I give that statement, and I give a full and open and honest account of what happens. The detectives record that. That's a completely video, electronically recorded interview. I would hope that what I say in that interview is no different to what I'm saying today. I would expect that it's the same. The beautiful thing about the truth is that you can always look back on the truth and it will be the guiding light to set you free. The more you lie, the more you're fucked. So I give them everything I've got in relation to what's happened in that scenario. I then finish that. I go home, hang out with my family, maybe get a few beers down range. I come in the next day and I go straight back out to scene while it's a crime scene that's established, and I provide the exact same thing, but in a video record of interview while the crime scene investigators are there, and I walk them through moment by moment and frame by frame my memory of what's happened. And to my understanding, and I reckon someone might be able to clarify this, that video of my shooting was utilised at the police college for the induction of new recruits for a while. I don't know if it's still there. I don't know if it's still being used. That's what I was told. I give that version of events, and then that was it. I was just basically told to sit and wait. And so in my mind, I'm thinking there was a shooting in Port Keats that happened just before we joined, lads.
Yeah, 2002.
Rob Whittington.
Yep.
Shot and killed that young fella, and it wasn't as particularly a clean shoot as what mine was. Also, there was a fatality. He was off work for years, right? So I'm thinking, well, it's about to be a paid vacation for a very long time. I don't know what happens next. And literally got a phone call that Monday. You can go back to work tomorrow. You're good to go. You're cleared.
Yep.
Done. And that was it. That was literally it for me.
So, mate, if you don't mind, just from a detective's point of view, I'll explain. And I had this explained to me by a very experienced detective senior sergeant. He would go, all right, you've got a person now, police officer, layperson, irrelevant, who has utilised potentially or actual lethal force against another person. And that person's now not telling you anything. So the whole thing that we have to do is we have to justify that use of force. So by saying nothing, you are not actually justifying it in your own mind. To me, and look, I'm not going to argue with legal eagles. To me, this is pretty obvious. If you've carried out your role exactly as trained, I would always say have support there and talk to someone else and all the rest of it and get right through it, because junior police, like you said really well earlier, 20-year-olds don't know what they're saying and your brain's not developed and whatever else.
Yeah.
Your actions can be completely justified 100%, but your brain might say stupid stuff, and that's fine. But the fact of the matter is, of course, the detectives are going to, I mean, something like this gets poured over more than anything else you can possibly imagine. But if you're in a situation, like you've said, highly trained, you're in TRG, you guys are trained, you live and breathe lethal or non-lethal, high-level use of force, high-risk environments. You train in it. Like you said, it was a training environment feeling the whole time. For you to turn around and go, I'm not saying nothing. It's like, well, okay then. Why not? Because you trained really well, and like we're not trying to stitch you up. The truth, we just want to know what happened, and we will determine what occurred there and justify that or not. Like it depends on. We're not making anything up. I've got no interest in the outcome. Here's what occurred. So, to me, especially with tactical units, experienced people and all the rest of it, it makes complete sense for you to come out and go, yes, I've been involved in this. I know that I'm a little bit stressed. My words might come out a bit flustered, a bit fast, all the rest of it. But you just explained it beautifully. I had no option. There was no option here. There was either that police officer died or I stopped that person with no other option than the one that I'm trained to use and given to by the police force. So to me, I think that's poor advice given in isolation. By
I agree.
Told...
I think that advice given in isolation is not appropriate. And look, the association does a great job to represent the interests of police officers. I don't think that advice was the best legal advice I could have got at the time, and so I made an informed decision. And I chose not to accept it.
Yeah. I think, look, I'm going to touch on something there. I remember, like, the way you explained it, Hosking, was absolutely fantastic. Like, you went through the whole, preclusions and means and opportunity and this, that, and the other. Absolutely perfect, as by legislation. And I just remember I had to look at a coronial, and this is going back to New South Wales, where they had tasered a guy and he died, and the sergeant kind of threw his troops under the bus and all that sort of thing. If anybody wants to look at the coronial file, I can't remember exactly what the coronial was called, but reading it, I could have justified everything that those officers did.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they never used the legislation to back themselves up.
Yeah.
And that's became their undoing. And I think it's you've mentioned a couple of times some of your senior partners when you first went in, they really trained you on how to use that. I had some exceptional senior partners that trained me on how to actually approach those situations and use the legislation to support you in those decisions. And Damo, I know you had the same.
Yeah.
And this is what I think it's dangerous in these days because, the experience that us three have got, I don't think there's that much in the NT police at the moment. As in, when you talk about numbers of people actually getting, we were talking to a sergeant that was in Catherine, and her most senior person was 3 months out of the college.
Wow.
Yep.
So that's dangerous precedence.
3 months.
We had that.
The most senior person, 3 months.
The most senior person on the road was 3 months out of the college. So that to me is just dangerous. It's just dangerous. There's no depth. You've got no depth of knowledge at that level of junior service. You just can't possibly deal with what can pop up.
You know, I tell those stories before, and I mean, it would have been the same for you lads in Alice Springs when you cracked off, right? Like, yeah, we're all junior and we're having a crack, but there was always someone a little bit senior that could have pulled you in the line. Like, we had a couple of good sergeants and a couple of good senior. Mate, I remember there was one copper there. He's probably still in, so I won't say his name, but mate, he grabbed one of the junior dudes and collared, like I'm fucking talking, collared him. So one of the boys stepped out of line, did the wrong thing, and this copper, like out the back in the muster area outside, literally throat choked this fucking junior probie. And he's like, "You fucking do that again, you are bashed. You are like legitimately bashed." And that grounds you as a copper like you wouldn't believe. Yep. Like, I mean, yeah, talk about the fucking workplace bullying and that sort of shit. Fuck off. Like, you're in violence, and you need to know, you know, your decisions have consequences that can affect the livelihoods and whether or not, you know, other families have their father or mother come home to them at night. So, like, that's what a good senior partner should do. Maybe not throat choke everyone, but, you know, when it's deserved.
Might be a short-lived sergeantship, but that's all right. Yeah. Yeah.
But no, you're exactly right.
Yeah, there's nothing like that. It's almost like a big brother pulling your little brother into line. It comes from a place of love.
Yeah, I see it the same way. Yeah. I see it the same way.
And I know it can't. It can also not. And this is where it's tricky.
Yeah.
Like, you can't write policy for this guy's a good guy, but he might clip you around the ears, but this guy's a piece of shit. You know, so I get that.
Yeah.
But, mate, especially from a well-respected dude who normally carries himself in the best interest to the guys and brings them together and looks after them and shows that care.
Yeah.
You can be tough. You can be a tough bastard. And sometimes it's pulling a bloke in the line. Listen here, young fella, you pull your head in. I've given an example on this podcast just a couple of episodes ago where a guy in Darwin City got sacked, young fella, Proby Connie. Cocky as hell, couldn't be told anything. This is way beyond the days of collaring someone in the fucking muster room just quietly. But it was... there was nothing. He wasn't on my patrol group, so he wasn't my problem to deal with. But he needed to be sacked, mate. He wasn't suitable for the job, and I don't think any level of pulling him into line would have worked. Like, I'll give you the example. He was working a bit with City Safe with us, and he wanted to call a guy out for a fight. He said, "I'll fight you. I'll take my belt off and fight you."
What?
Just wake up to yourself. What goes through your brain that you think you can do that? So that's what we're doing.
Maybe 20 years ago or 30 years ago when we were riding horseback around, you know, like the bush.
Yeah.
on the main street of Darwin City.
You de-escalate. We don't start fights.
Yeah.
So, we were dealing with that. But, I mean, that's the trouble. We're dealing with a human organisation, and it's humans to be human is to err. And the thing was, you learn there's nothing better than that real closeness of a practical skill, and you will never forget something that's occurred to you and you've been corrected then and there in a practical tone, not in front of everyone, just a quiet correction at the time, and then nothing further. Right, move on. You're part of the crew. Come on, mate. You're part of this team. Let's go. So you've been corrected, and now you're welcome. You're still part of this team. We've corrected you. You're part of the family. But it gets to a point where, you know, that's why, and especially as I got more senior and especially more in the investigative roles and middle management, senior sergeant, you'd come at that point, but you'd say, what happens to you is up to you. This is completely up to you. I've got no interest in the outcome, but and this is more the internal side of things. And not that I wasn't in toe cutters or anything, but it was just as a senior sergeant, as an acting.
Middle management, it's HR, right? Like, you're dealing with HR matters.
HR, mate. It was all HR. I wasn't a cop. I wore the uniform, but I wasn't a cop. I went to meetings and I organised rosters and I pulled people in, and that was all I did. I wasn't policing anything, except for the fact I was still a negotiator, and they sent me to deal with the wharfies who had to go to Howard Springs for 2 weeks on a drop of a hat. That was fun. Anyway, I dealt with that. I think you were out of the job by then, but we had a car full of you boys and an unmarked Hyundai just down the road ready to roll because I thought we're on for sure here. Anyway, and we were unarmed. We deliberately went in unarmed so that we showed no threat. We're not here to do that. We're here to talk to you. But I said,
yeah.
yeah, but I like to keep an ace up my sleeve, and I've got an ace down there with M4 assault rifles, so I got my shit
Yeah.
covered.
Yeah.
And they don't fuck around.
Yeah. So it was
Nope.
a time.
Not
Might be
at
really
all,
rough.
mate.
So Hosko, mate, that's been really good. I appreciate that. You've talked through. I think you've explained that. Like you explained that whole situation really well. It'd be a very rare number of people, or a very rare trait, to be able to explain that. And I do appreciate you sharing that, because it's also, it's a professional issue, but it's also a personal thing. So you would have gone through. There would have been some emotions involved in that. So you've gone
The
through it.
funny thing is, Damo, that the one emotion that came out of that was, it's going to possibly sound conceited, but it was pride. I was
Good.
really proud of
Yeah.
the
So you
training
should be.
that it was a direct result of the influence of the guys that trained me. The old school sergeants that ran that section, the way that it should have been run, to, like the berating that we got when we were new boys to just shut up and listen and do the hard yards, is the reason that me and Chris and Alo and anyone else at that job that night went home. Was because when I started, we were told to do the job properly, and it's a 0.1% margin of error, and I carry that over into my current work. You don't get a second shot at what you're doing. When the time comes, you have to deliver your services to the nth degree. So, like when that finished, and I said to Mel, and that felt like a training scenario, I honestly felt proud. That's all I felt. I just felt really proud. I wasn't upset or sad or angry or scared or anything like that. I was just really proud that what I'd been trained to do, I'd executed at the time in the absolute best way. And I mean, like, not just the shooting, but also the critical medical care. Packaging this guy up, doing the full remit, not the driving from there to there in 7 minutes. So I was there to back the boys. Like, it was the full thing.
Yeah.
That's what made me feel proud.
Yeah,
I'm glad you're
full
proud of it,
service.
mate, because I know. Sorry, Shilty. We were proud of it. I remember being very
Yes.
proud.
Yeah.
Sorry, Shilty.
Thanks,
What were you going to
fellas.
say?
No, mate, exactly the same. Like, the aftercare, all that sort of thing. It just shows your professionalism. And we've spoken about that before with the, recent things in New South Wales. But that's what you do. That's what it is. That's what the job's about. It's about, protecting life, but also preserving it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's a good way to describe it, which is exactly what
yeah.
happened. I've not thought about that, protecting life and preserving it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
mate, I
that-
think you segued
that was-
nicely there. You said
Yeah.
that you've carried that over into your current role. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, so I think that was, like, of the critical incidents that I was involved with in TRG, that was probably right at the top. I'm sure some of the boys have got a better memory than me and some other stuff. I was trying to think about other things that might have happened along the way, but nothing really sort of takes the cake in comparison to that. A few search and rescues, a few hostile offenders, a few, mobile snatch and grabs, that sort of stuff. But the majority of the work that I actually did was around dignitary protection. And not long after that shooting, I was selected to go to the ANZ CDC National Skills Enhancement course for dignitary protection. So ANZ CDC is the Australian New Zealand Counterterrorism Committee. The National Skills Enhancement course is run by ANZ PAA, the Australian New Zealand Police. I'm going to fuck up the last two A's, but they're like the overarching body that sees what the national policing curriculum is. And then dignitary protection is looking after what are recognised as internationally protected persons under the Geneva Convention. So you're talking about like heads of state, heads of finance, royalty, visiting guests of government, governor generals, that sort of stuff. So I'd been involved in a bunch of dignitary protection jobs, probably because of that background in surveillance. And after that skills enhancement course in 2015, I stayed in TRG for on and off for another year and a half. And then in 2017, I had an opportunity to apply for a position with the company I currently work for, Panoptic Solutions. And it was an operations position managing executive protection through Southeast Asia and Australia. Panoptic Solutions had sort of been founded in about 2010. It was run by a guy who was a military close personal protection instructor. He'd come from the Air Force, I'll screw it up. He calls it the ADG, Airfield Defence Guard. I'm not a soldier's asshole. I don't know the military by any means, as attested to by being a bush ninja.
Yeah.
So Troy Clayton's his name, and he founded Panoptic Solutions in 2010. We currently have a client net worth roster of anywhere from $400 billion up in the top clients that we look after. So primarily contingent contracts, so clients coming over to the Asia Pacific region or Australia, and we're providing them executive protection whilst they're in our geographical lane, sort of from Japan through to the Antarctic, anywhere along the coastline of Asia and sort of the Pacific Islands. And the majority of the work that we do is around the same standards because Troy comes from that military close personal protection background, and I have the DIG Pro stuff from the ANZ stuff. The majority of our operations are discrete, low level, very, very high capability executive protection services with a blend of medical. And it's because he's got a paramedicine degree. We've got a former doctor. We've got a doctor who was formerly serving with the Australian Defence Force and deployed with the Special Forces, Dr. Kieran McCarthy. We have this really, really high level capability to provide medical aid as well as the top tier executive protection services that are needed.
Yeah, nice. No, it's a beautiful segue, and I think one thing we talk about a fair bit as well is transition out of police force. I know we've spoken, Schultz and I have spoken about how there's definitely a transition period. How did you find that? How did you find transitioning from serving police in the unit or in the organisation to all of a sudden you're out on your own?
It's fucking hard, gents. I think, anyone that does it, that breaks free of the golden handcuffs and the life that they're living with purpose, clarity, function and power behind them, and manages to set themselves on a new direction away from the police is doing something really impressive. And I'm happy to talk to anyone. I'm a massive pest on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to talk to anyone that's looking to leave the blue line and wants to make a life for themselves outside of law enforcement. I'll talk to anyone about anything to do with what I've gone through and what might help them go through what they're going through. Personally, I had periods of absolute frustration at not being in the job because I fucking loved TRG. But I left TRG for my family so we could get to Queensland. I left the police so we could get over to Queensland. So I struggled with the drop in action, the sense of purpose, the lack of authority, in the sense of being able to carry out your duties every day with, clearly defined requirements, right? I loved that. I loved the intensity of it. But then I also moved into an organisation where I'm surrounded by veterans, law enforcement and military. We share a fraternity, and I found a place that I could utilise the unique skill set that I have to provide a very, very positive service to the private enterprise world, which is pretty rare, I think, when you look at leaving the police. How do you take those skills and transfer them into a civilian setting where you don't know what you don't know in the civilian world when you're coming from the police? If you've been a kid like us, where you join, except Schultz at 40, where you join as a kid and you don't know anything else, right? Cheap shots aside, it's hard, right? It's really hard, and I think that's why it's really important for us to talk to each other when we are looking at getting out.
I'm going to give you a bit of a shout out there because I did listen to you. You got a podcast called Wheels Up. And it's really good. I listened to it, and it was funny when I was first listening. I'm going, you're giving advice, and it's really, really good advice because I'm going, yeah, fucking mate, everybody fucking knows that. But then I thought, well, no, not everybody knows that. I know that because I know exactly what you're fucking talking about. But everybody else, the general public, are actually ignorant to the fact of what you do when you're traveling and all that sort of thing. Yeah. So can you just touch on a bit of that for me?
Well, I think how far do you want me to go, Schultze?
Yeah.
Where do you want me to dig in with the advice?
Well,
I'd love to say it on my own voice.
It's about the skills that you learnt that were transferable for people, whether you're traveling overseas, whether you're whatever you're doing, there's a lot of stuff that we look at that the general population doesn't, but it's important. If you're going in a corporate world and you're moving around, and you need to be aware of this sort of stuff. I suppose some of the scams and this, that, and the other.
I reckon the two things that stand out for me, that the strongest that I've taken away, and it's not the physical use of force stuff. It's nothing to do with the hands-on gear. It's complex problem solving. As a police officer, you are used to coming into completely uncertain scenarios, and you can take this away with anything, whether it's a workplace, personal, whatever. Police officers are absolute weapons at solving complex problems under a very finite period of time. You turn up to a domestic situation and you've got a number of parties that you've got to separate, investigate, solve, and figure out with the threat of lethal force or violence of action, or the coroner's constable coming up and screwing you over. Not screwing you over, Bar, but you've got all these that's for the armpits, you dirty dog. Cold blood. Complex problem solving as a police officer is absolutely one of your key traits that you take away, right? You are an absolute weapon at it. I don't care whether or not you're a school-based connie or a jury fucker, you're still good at it. The other one is risk. Now, I think a lot of people get caught up in, and there's some confusion around this, and there's way smarter people than me that know about it, but we get so fixated on understanding how good we are at dealing with risk, and we forget as police officers that what we actually see are vulnerabilities and threats to those vulnerabilities, and we are some of the best people or employees to deal with threats and vulnerabilities to either mitigate or avoid risks in the first place. And those two things are so incredibly transferable, let alone your communication skills, your computer literacy, your ability to write, your professionalism, your understanding of dealing with diverse communities. Like, it's just about synthesizing what you know and turning it into what you need.
Yeah. I think it's something you don't realise how much you actually learn in the police until you actually get out and see a lot of other industries.
Sorry, mate. A saying I love is you don't know what you know. And it's so true.
Yeah.
I came out, mate, we talk about momentum. I left the police force, and Ema, my wife, said to me, excuse me, she goes, I want you to do nothing for 3 months. And I thought, I can't do nothing for 3 months. Within the first week of leaving, getting back and living down on the farm, I'd go like, we need milk, I'm going to Dorrigo. It's a 80-kilometre round trip. I'm going for a bottle of milk. I was hyperactive. I was just hyperactive.
That's nothing in the police, Damo.
Hey, I was just looking.
That's nothing in the police.
Oh, God, no. But I was looking for it. I was just looking for stuff. I was like, man, the world is moving too slow. What is going on?
Yeah.
What I realised was that the world's not moving too slow. My brain's moving too fast.
Yeah, man.
So
spinning.
What's happened is it's funny now that people say, and I've been around lots of cops. I did a Bali trip 18 months after I left, or 12 months after I left the police. And it took 2 days for these dudes to wind down. And they're good mates of mine, they're really good mates. And it was beautiful for me because I was back with my people. Like, it was magnificent for me.
Yeah.
One thing I did notice was that their brains were spinning at 1,000,000 miles an hour, just looking for stuff. Yeah, what do we got now? What are we doing? What are we doing? It's like, boys, we're in fucking Bali. Chill. And I remember going, I'm extremely relaxed compared to these guys, and I'm the tense one at home. So it's like I realized that the momentum, if you spin a 2-ton wheel, it takes a minute for it to stop, So all of a sudden that wheel spins down and winds down. And I'm at a point now where I'm still training and I can still activate if I need to, but there's no need for me to activate like that. We all talk about, and everyone's heard about the old thing where you need to sit with your back to the wall and you need to be looking at the front door. Mate, I lived that for so long. I could never. I was so uncomfortable sitting with my back to the door. I just couldn't do it. Like, there's no way. And I know that every cop in the world saying, well, no shit. But civilians don't, or people who haven't been involved in that situation, very highly intelligent people, they haven't got that knowledge. They haven't got that experience, and they don't know what we're talking about. Well, I can now, I challenge myself now. I sit in a coffee shop and I deliberately sometimes sit with my back to the door when I know I would have checked the street first. But
Do you know
one
what?
thing will.
Sorry, Damo. Just while you're on that, I'm gonna cut in there. Like recently, I went to South Bank, and my partner Miriam, she's with me. She understands me probably pretty well because I'm pretty mental. And anyway, I saw something, and it was something that triggered me. And she was, we were walking through the crowd, and she goes, "You all right?" And I said, "No, I'm not really." But it was funny. We had to sit down, and she kind of looks at me, and I said, "I'm sitting over there." She goes, "Yeah, you're going to have your back to the wall." And it was just, I mean, this is 7 years after,
Yeah.
but it was just something that triggered you, and you just put it on unease. But I do exactly the same what you're saying. I try and put myself in positions where I do have my back because I want to be accepted in the society
Yeah.
to to do that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
But
but
every now and again,
no.
something will trigger you,
Mate,
and you can't.
knowing my luck, it'd be the day that a terrorist attack happens that I got me back to the fucking wall.
Oh shit! Now's the time for it. I'll tell you what, it's fucking getting hectic out there.
It's getting hectic. So
Business
I
has
think
never
the
looked so
beautiful
good. I'll
thing is
tell you.
everyone we talk to, Hosko, there's this incredible similarity, and it doesn't matter the jurisdiction, and it doesn't matter the emergency service or the fact that they're military or whatever. There's so many similarities, and that's what I think is good for us. And we've got our community that they'll listen and they'll understand. I think what we try to do is, mate, just read the title of the podcast. Mate, there is nothing. Look at our faces, mate. There is nothing special about us.
Yeah.
So,
You got the old bloke and the fucking slightly younger bloke.
Slightly younger, better looking,
So, the stud.
I said it to Hosko earlier when we were having a little preamble. I said that at the moment I'm training. I did first aid today, firefighting last week, doing a few other things this week, and I said that there was a couple of 17-year-olds in the room, a couple of young fellas, and anyway, one of the boys goes, "Oh, so what? If you were in the coppers for all that time, like how old are you now?" And I said, "Oh, I'm 43, mate." And he goes, "Oh man, my old man's only 40. You look way younger than him." It's like, yeah. I'm pretty happy with that.
You're winning, Jay, mate. You're winning.
I loved it. I pulled it off. I think I pulled off 38 in his head. I don't know. It's still old people to him. So, no. But Hosko, I think,
mate,
what else you
awesome.
got, mate? Anything you want to say?
No, he's just sitting there thinking about all of them, mate.
Yeah. Oh, man, you want to talk stories. This is what getting on the piss with cops is all about, right? It's just fucking telling bad war stories. I could go for – that's the problem, right? Where do you draw the line? You could just keep going for hours and hours.
Yeah, we definitely could. When we're recording and we're putting it out, we probably don't want to go too much past 2 hours because we'll lose our audience. But apart from that, I think the beauty of this is it's a demonstration of what we talk about in choir practice. We've got 3 blokes. When was the last time I saw you, Hosko? It'd be well over 10 years. Well, we'd be getting close to 10 years. Maybe not 10, maybe 8.
No, your memory's fucked because I saw you at the quarantine centre.
Oh, very brief.
Sergeanting. Yeah, shortly. Very shortly.
So a very brief encounter. But
you were fucking busy. You were a busy man then.
We had a bit going on. That was a good job. I enjoyed that. It was totally different, but the challenges were monumental, and that was really interesting stuff. Like, I know people go, "Oh, you bloody quarantine! Yeah, you're dealing with quarantine." Ha ha ha! It's like, yeah, but I tell you what happened when I was chasing really serious criminals. I never had an email from the Commissioner of Police that said you have 7 minutes to respond directly to me. Get this information now. When I was working in quarantine, mate, I had 7 minutes to respond to the Commissioner. And then about 2 minutes after I responded to him, we turned the ABC News on and watched the media conference where he quoted my email word for word. So pressure was on, mate. Pressure was on.
Hey,
pressure.
Talking of politics, Damo.
Oh, it was great. I loved it. I did enjoy it. And it's flowed over to the firefighting, fire training world. It's flowed over to that incident management team. Pressure's on, and it's just, here we go. I'm in my element. Thank Christ this stuff still exists. I love it. And it just, the pressure's on, the problems are there. Hosko, I could not have said it better myself. The transferable skills from quite relatively young people is incredible. Yeah. The ability to deal with pressure, be able to make very dynamic decisions with limited information. This is more to the police, this young serving police. You are gaining incredible skills. Don't think for a second if you feel like you need to do something else. Don't get me wrong, I'm not encouraging everyone to leave the cops because we need cops. But
yeah, spot on.
it's if you need to get out, you've got skills.
Well, look, I'm just going to segue there, mate. When you were talking about that one of those first incidents in Tennant Creek, like I
Yeah.
was just sitting there and imagining how spun out I would have been as a young cop,
That was crazy, man.
because the amount of decisions you had to make split second was phenomenal.
Mate,
Yeah,
that's like, fuck, that's the crazy thing, right? I mean, I'm not telling stories that are the only stories from that town. Like Damo spoke about, and anyone that's been in any of those remote locations where you've got that level of chaos, my stories are just mine. There are some incredible things that would have happened that I wouldn't even know about that, I wish we could highlight, because there's absolute acts of heroism that don't ever get brought to light. And they're just general duties coppers just doing the most incredible things. And let's not take away or forget, even 2 hours in, fireys. The hose ferries and pole dancers, like, they do some of the most incredible work for, saving people from accidents, or like tearing cars open to keep people alive, or like they're incredible people. And the same for the ambos. Like frontline services, they just don't get corrections. The forgotten service, right?
Mate,
the ones that are
corrections.
looking.
Yeah.
yes.
Take my hat off to those blokes, and more people should, because they get forgotten about so quickly.
Yep.
Yeah. I had a friend in corrections, and he used
Just
to
one.
actually.
Don't associate with those dirty dogs. I'm just teasing all the screws out there.
Yeah.
And he said to me, he goes, I feel sorry for you blokes, like I can deal with it. I said, you know what? At least we get to see the good side of life as well.
Yeah.
I said, you get to see the shit that we put away.
Yeah, man.
And that's all you get.
Yeah.
You don't get anything. There's no, there's no, like, I mean, the forest we always talking about saving kittens and all that sort of thing out of the tree. We get to help the little old lady and all that sort of stuff. And the nurses,
well, you're not helping nurses, Schultzy.
No.
Hey, you cheeky dog.
What I love is, and it's funny, mate, because it's Tennant Creek. So obviously Tennant Creek, very small town, but full suite of services in Tennant Creek. And the number of parties at the police club there where the police were the minority. It was nurses, doctors, teachers, fireys, ambos, and a couple of cops. And it was just the best. It was so good. And the sense of humour was shared. It was absolutely and tradies. We had a mix of like a swath of tradies who were there as well. Yeah. It was just brilliant. It was all the working folk in Tennant Creek who just went about their life and just wanted to mix with people of a similar age and let their hair down. And the beauty of the police clubs in Tennant Creek was it was the ultimate safe space. We talk about a safe space. Well, in this safe space, mate, you could say anything and no one cared. And you could say anything against that and no one cared. You could say anything you wanted. What happened at the police club stayed at the police club, unless there was a problem and then we got investigated. But it was always that safe space. It was that you can go to the police club and know that you can just relax and you can completely relax. You are safe. And it was in a town where the town was pretty wild.
We'll just add one caveat to that.
Yep.
And that is, at some point in Tennant Creek's history, some young police officers bought like a 70cc or maybe like a 50cc quad bike. And for this period of time, humans were jumped with this quad bike in the police club. So we would turn it into a racetrack out the back in that little garden area. And we would get the plastic tables, put it on a couple of Bessa bricks, and then do like Evel Knievels over humans. So that was a little bit unsafe, maybe, because we could have killed someone. But it was fun.
I mean emotionally safe.
Emotionally safe. Emotionally safe. Yeah. Not physically safe. No, yeah, good. Yeah, I'm glad we clarified that one point.
Mate, how did I miss out on that party? Tennant Creek was my party town, and I missed out on that.
Mate, shit was pretty loose back in the day.
It was a good time. Jesus. Well, mate, listen, mate, Hosko, it's been an absolute pleasure, and we've had a that's a decent hit out. We're at 2 hours 15, so that's a good session. For all those people
gents, it's been great.
and said they wanted a longer podcast, we've delivered. But I think, mate, it's been really interesting. So you're a pretty unique character in that you've done general duties, remote policing, incorporating that physical surveillance unit stuff, which a lot of people are interested in. Geez, we could have talked about that for 2 hours. Some of the stuff you guys did for us was awesome. So we had some awesome physical surveillance stuff. Obviously, TRG.
Yeah, some of those. Yeah, I don't know if I'd be allowed to talk about all of that because it's like national doctrine stuff. So like TRG, I can sort of talk about some.
No,
of the stuff
and that's true. That's why these conversations we don't flirt with the line. Actually, we hang back from the line because there are things that even in my role, like I've got no interest in disclosing national secrets. It's not going to happen. So not that they're that secret. Like bloody hell, I'm not making myself out to be a spy.
No, I know what you mean.
We don't talk about. I know what you mean. Like, there are just things we don't talk about because there are still people employing those tactics and employing the way they do things. So that's why we don't talk about stuff. And it's not to make me cool because I ain't cool. So
you're pretty cool. You're pretty cool. You're like Benjamin Button.
Got a head
you
like
don't age. It's like you're going backwards. It's like you're going backwards.
Head like
what water you drinking out of Dorigo, mate?
Hey, mate.
Listen, one thing I just want to say as well, mate, I really appreciate you talking about the shooting. I know that you felt a lot of pride after that.
No, most welcome.
I'm glad you were happy to talk to us because a lot of people would really love to hear that, and I think that's been covered. So that was really good. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
And we'll catch up, mate. We've got a few things in the pipeline down the track, and we'll probably talk about that when it occurs. And well,
you blokes aren't too far from the Goldie, so it'd be good to catch up. And like seriously, if there is anyone that ever just wants to, current serving or looking to get out, or maybe you've got red blood, you're a dirty fiery, or you're paramedic, whatever.
Big squishy, cuddly ambo.
Nurses.
Yeah.
Look out.
So, anything to say, Shelty, before we wrap it up?
Mate, no, I think it's awesome, mate. I found out some stuff that I didn't know, and even every now and again, Damo brings up some stuff that he's probably mentioned before after one too many beers. But like that last one about the your search warrant in where was that?
Connemara. Yeah, the search warrant. On that yet? That'll be interesting.
Oh,
yeah.
I'd actually forgotten about that until you started talking about it. I'm going, shit, now I know what you're going to talk about. But look, mate, also you add a different perspective to what Damo and I have because you had that TRG, you lived that world. And you had to, it was hurry up and wait. And look, and I think a lot of people would be interested to hear what you guys have to say. And look, I'm going to give another shout out to your podcast, Wheels Up, because I think if you're actually traveling overseas and all that sort of stuff, it's well worth listening to. You'll learn some vital information and stuff that everyday coppers might think is pretty good, but also you have more specialised training in TRG than what we have.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Look, that stuff on Wheels Up, is predominantly aimed at corporate travellers going overseas, which is what we're trying to cater for. So, I mean, if there's stuff on there that helps, look, we're mostly APAC related in regards to what we do. But, like I said, I'm happy to talk to anyone. I mean, that's probably one of the curses of being in the cops, right? We'll just talk to anyone.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely. Well, I think that's a wrap, Shelty. That's not a bad gig.
No, right. That's Two Ordinary Cops signing off, and thank you, Ben, again for coming on.
Cheers, lads.
See ya.